Hey guys, you are watching your anime world. How are you all? Please support to subscribe this channel for watching new interesting stories. So in this video, we will see third part what if Deku has the robot Quirk became the Ex Machina. Here is short summary. Deku is a robot, and Katsuki will prove it no matter the cost. Drabble series. No robots were harmed in the production of this work of fiction. But before we start, if you want more stuff like this, then be sure to subscribe and like this video. And if possible share this video with your friends. Now let's start the story. Inko almost let the ringing phone go to voicemail. Instead, she picked it up and said, "You better have a good reason for this." Funny, I was going to say the same thing. Cut the crap, Hisashi, and tell me what you want. The doctor said you were barren. Thank you for reminding me, she said dryly. If you want to try again, go to hell. How curious, then, Hisashi continued, that I got a phone call from UA telling me that my son got kidnapped. Inko rubbed her temples. You weren't listed as an emergency contact. I wasn't, but as it so happens, the school is legally obligated to contact both parents in missing person situations. And last I checked, we're still technically married. Something I might have to fix. And fight a custody battle over our son. He's not your son, Inko snapped. Then whose is he? Hisashi roared back. Did you have a doctor lie so you could sleep with someone else? He's adopted, asshole. Inko took a deep breath. The doctor didn't lie. Even after you left, I kept looking. Transplants, Quirk therapy, nothing worked. Adopted, Hisashi echoed. He's your spitting image. That hair, those freckles, your eyes, he's practically molded in your. A long, tense silence passed between them. Then Hisashi broke out in hysterical laughter. It's a robot, isn't it? That Quirk of Izuku's, how very convenient that it lets it make and absorb mechanical components. You could stuff it full of weapons and turn it into a walking tank. My son is not a weapon. Sure it's not. So, you kept my name so no one would ask inconvenient questions. Not for sentimental reasons, that's for sure. Forged birth certificate. Hacked their systems myself. Does UA even know? Does anyone? Inko said sternly, you won't be telling anyone. You made an AI in your basement and let it loose on the public. Why shouldn't I? I can end your career with a single patent. Hisashi groaned. You planned for this, didn't you? Well, with a sigh, Hisashi said, fine, but don't drag me into your mess. I refuse to call that thing my son. Good, you don't deserve to. Hisashi lingered on the line. The clank of ice cubes against glass echoed as he poured himself a glass of liquor. I know we didn't part on the best of terms, he said, his voice soft. And I know that's my fault. I'm not going to apologize for that or say what I did was wrong. But, as someone who once loved you enough to put a ring on your finger, I need to tell you that you've crossed a line. It won't end well, you know that, so, for your sake, you need to move on. Like you did. Hisashi hesitated. Goodbye. When the line went dead, Inko went back to drafting Izuku a new body. With what she saw of this sensei person, she knew her son would need it. We need to get Deku away from the League of Villains. Katsuki roared. The assembled 1A students exchanged surprised looks. Wow, Shiro said. I didn't expect you to want to rescue him, given, you know. Iida adjusted his glasses. Well, I find it quite commendable that you wish to come to the aid of your fellow classmate. However, it is against the rules to use our quirks in public without the permission of our instructor, and Aizawa-sensei instructed us all to stay out of trouble while he deals with the hungry vultures. Iida blinked. I was not aware that Japan had a vulture problem. Screw the rules. Bakugo shouted. If we don't act now, then humanity will be doomed. The whole world as we know it will be lost. Dude, Midoriya's your whole world. Kirishima asked. I didn't think you swung that way, but it's super manly to be so open about it. I'll swing at anything that's a machine. Microwaves, television sets, defibrillators, they're all plotting to take over the world. Kaminari shuddered. I better keep my game consoles away from you. Harboring the enemy, Katsuki grabbed Kaminari by the collar and scorched his shirt. Where are they hiding, and how soon are they planning to kidnap the mayor? The League's planning to kidnap the mayor. Kirishima asked. Then we better hustle. Ochako strode up and held out her fist. We'll rescue Deku. Kirishima added his own fist. We'll get back Katsuki's world. Katsuki thrust his own hand between them. We'll stop their nefarious plans. One by one, the other students added their own hands. Iida hesitated, then said, we shouldn't be doing this, but I can't let you go unsupervised. I shall join you all in whatever punishment you receive. All right then, let's go rescue Izuku. Yeah, Katsuki added, and smash Deku to pieces so the League can't use it. Yeah, everyone echoed, and smash Deku so, wait, what? Katsuki, Ochako shouted, that's not rescuing him. Did I ever say I was going to rescue that robot? Another hand joined the pile. You were rescuing someone. Who are you rescuing? We're rescuing Izuku, Mina shouted. How did you get out? The door was ripped off its hinges, so I walked over it. No, I mean, never mind. Mineta dusted his hands. Well, looks like we rescued Midoriya. Great job everyone. A shadow fell over them. Did I just hear that correctly? You rescued Midoriya. The students collectively gulped and looked up. Aizawa stared down at them and menacingly drank from his juice pouch. Mineta said, sweating, we rescued him from his boredom. Yes, that's it, so very bored, but now we're not bored anymore, right guys? Izuku frowned. That is not what you said. You were saying you rescued me, were you not? Mineta trembled. Why you must have misheard me. Aizawa sighed. Detention, all of you. As everyone groaned, Izuku said, I have not had detention before. Should I order pizza? All right Izuku, your turn. Mina shouted as she stormed down the hall towards the next room in the 1A dorm room competition. Katsuki cackled to himself as they approached the robot's room. Beyond that door would, no doubt, be proof of Deku's mechanical nature. Rushing ahead of everyone, Katsuki flung open Deku's door, and shouted, aha! See, I told you all, I told you he's. Katsuki's voice died as he beheld what lay beyond the door. A tiny cubby, just large enough to stand in if you squeezed your arms against your sides, and plastered top to bottom with All Might posters. A single light bulb flickered feebly in the ceiling. Dude, is this it? Kaminari asked, aghast. Yes, this is my room. Why is it so tiny? Tiny, is it not spacious? I have an entire 196 nanometers of space along all three spatial axes, far outside the tolerance range of my movements in sleep mode. Sleep? Ojiro asked. How would you sleep without a bed? I tried beds, once. I broke every bed frame in the store. I was not allowed to try any more beds after that. Katsuki ground his teeth. In his heart of hearts, he knew Deku was hiding something. An epiphany struck him. Of course the room was so small. The sneaky robot had built walls and hid everything important behind it. It even put up vintage, priceless All Might posters everywhere so he couldn't knock over the walls without committing a most heinous sacrilege. Forgive me, All Might, Katsuki whispered as he rapped his knuckles along the wall, searching for somewhere he could cleanly punch through. Are you looking for the closet? Deku asked. You have a closet? Shiro asked. How tiny is it? It's right through here. Deku pushed along the far wall, and it swung back. A spacious room appeared, with All Might memorabilia tastefully arranged along its many bookshelves, tables, and racks. Hey, you have a bed in here. Of course, Deku said. How else am I supposed to display the All Might covers? You see what this all means, right? Katsuki asked. Yeah, of course we do. It means that Izuku got us all good. Mina shouted. Wow, I can't believe you got fake walls put up to make us think you slept in that. But I do sleep in that. Good one, you really had me going there. A definite 8 out of 10 for the prank. All Might staring everywhere, though, Mina shuddered. Right, Sato's room next. Is that chocolate frosting smeared around your mouth? Ojiro asked. Maybe. By the way, Sato gets a perfect 10. We didn't even visit his room yet. Once the students all left, the walls of merchandise folded inwards, exposing racks full of mechanical limbs, weapons capable of leveling city blocks, and gadgets assembled by Japan's brightest engineering mind. Izuku pored over the assembled machinery and took the freeze ray. I believe I shall eat this one today. Well, everyone, how is it? Sato asked as he wiped cake batter off his cheek. Fantastic, Mina said as she stuffed her cheeks full of chocolate cupcake. Yaoyorozu daintily wiped her mouth before cramming 2 cupcakes in at once. She said, I can't help myself. They're so good, but it came out as MFFRFLFRR. Izuku peeled the wrapper off his cupcake. His eyes glowed as they scanned every particle of cake matter. Mouth unhinging like a python, Izuku carefully deposited the cake into his mouth and broke it down particle by particle. Almost perfect, Izuku said. A very impressive cupcake. Sato's face twitched, his lips frozen into a rictus of a smile. Almost perfect, he asked, emphasizing every word. Meaning not perfect. The concentration of sugar is too high by a margin of 1.83%. Other margins for your ingredients range in the tenths of percents. Sato looked down at his platter of cupcakes and tested the frosting between his fingers. Give me a minute. Sato snorted a line of sugar and ran straight through the wall. He came back, holding a box of balances and measuring spoons. His hands moved in a blur as he weighed it out and measured every ingredient for his second batch. Mina passed out at the first bite. Yaoyorozu stuffed herself until she couldn't get up from her chair. Izuku performed another analysis, crunched the data, and said, very impressive. You came even closer to the perfect composition of cupcake. Sato's bloodshot eyes drilled holes into Izuku's face. Closer to perfect, are they not perfect? There are roughly 2.2 nanograms of butter needed for optimal consistency. Sato trembled as Izuku gave his full report. He shoved his hand into the sugar jar and shoved every granule up his nose before jumping through the ceiling. When he landed back in the kitchen, he set up microscopes and volumetric pipettes and delicate balances the likes of which pharmaceutical labs dreamed of obtaining. Sato toiled over another batch of cupcakes, counting out individual molecules of sugar and flour as he assembled a confection the likes of which only a divine being could hope to match. The cupcakes glowed with an ethereal aura as Sato gently pulled them from the oven. The aroma, wafting from them like the kiss of an angel, lured every student from across the campus. Pillowy frosting tempted fingers to caress it, and the cakes held the gentle warmth of a mother's hand. Izuku examined the final cupcake. Very well done. The ratios of ingredients balance each other perfectly. Good, Sato said, beaming. Cocoa powder and spattered cake batter covered him head to toe. And how does it taste? I do not know. Sato froze. You don't know. I do not have any taste buds. Sato's eye twitched. He tore into a bag of sugar, snorted the contents, and rampaged across the kitchen in a fit of rage. The leftover cupcakes were smashed beneath his fists. Iida stood before a podium, wearing a silver tuxedo. The 1A students, in attire ranging from pizza-stained Kaminari casual to Yaoyorozu's classy red dress, sat in luxurious padded chairs in the dimly lit, lavishly decorated dorm lounge. First item on the first annual Yaoyorozu charity auction, a PS55. With its limited release, these highly sought-after console can sell for millions on the internet. Starting bid is at 100,000. 500,000, Kaminari shouted, desperately waving a stack of bills in the air. 1 million, Yaoyorozu calmly replied. Kaminari groaned and slumped in his seat. Ojiro whispered to Shoji, why are we having an auction when she can outbid us on everything? Just let her have this. She promised pizza afterwards. Iida looked around. Any other bidders? Going once, going twice. 1,000,001 yen. Midoriya raised his own paddle in the air. Iida straightened his glasses and said, you must raise the bid by a minimum of 100,000. Oh, 1.1 million then. 1.2 million, Yaoyorozu shouted. 1.3 million, 2 million, 2.1 million. How does Midoriya have that kind of cash? Kaminari whispered in awe. Auntie Inko invented cold fusion, Bakugo said. She still refuses to sell it because no one can scrape together enough money to buy it. Not even the US? Juro asked. She laughed the secretary of the treasury out of her living room. 5 million. 5.1 million. Mineta gaped at the growing figures. At this point, you may as well buy it off the internet. Kaminari, cheerfully scrolling for his phone, asked, how much do you think I could get for a kidney? Tell Izuku you have kidney cancer, Juro deadpanned. He could pop it right out for you. Great idea. Hey, Midoriya, Zero slapped tape over Kaminari's mouth. Dude, no. It's not fair. 10 million. 10.1 million. 10 point. Yaoyorozu checked her bank account. She glanced around nervously as Iida started counting. With a grunt, she tore open her dress and took a platinum bar out of her cleavage. 20 million. 20.1 million. Platinum Matryoshka dolls spilled like rain from Yaoyorozu's torn dress. 100 million. Izuku yet again raised the bid by the minimum. Yaoyorozu clawed at the zipper, exposing her back and letting more platinum shower the floor. 100 million. 100.1 million. As the tattered dress hung limply Momo's shrinking frame, Zero stitched together a duct tape cloak and threw it over her. Sato and Mina moved seats as the growing pile of platinum threatened to swallow them whole. $1 billion. Wrong currency, Iida said. Bidding is in. 1.0001 billion. Yaoyorozu grunted and strained, but not a sliver of platinum left her skin. She could only watch helplessly as Iida swung the gavel and gave Izuku the PS55. Next up, we have a 100-inch plasma screen television. 1 billion. Yaoyorozu shouted, waving her paddle wildly. 1.0001 billion. Suyu asked, why are they paying for things they can easily make? Shoto shrugged, I do it all the time with Endeavor's credit cards. Anyone else want to go? Kaminari asked as Mineta shuffled aside, shoulders slumped in defeat. Izuku picked up the controller. This game looks like fun. What is the objective? Dude, you haven't played before. Kaminari asked. Don't expect me to hold back. I have a reputation to keep. As Izuku picked his character, Kaminari asked, Water Hose Duo. Mid-tier at best, and hard for beginners. Try someone else, as long as it's not All Might. This is fine. Kaminari shrugged. Your funeral. Once the match began, Izuku pressed random buttons, making his characters jump, strike, and spray water randomly. Meanwhile, Kaminari deftly maneuvered Endeavor through the unfocused onslaught and launched Izuku off the stage. The two heroes plummeted aimlessly into the void. Try using up B next time, Kaminari suggested. For the second stock, Izuku moved with a greater sense of purpose, avoiding Endeavor's hitboxes and blocking projectiles. When a block turned into a parry, Izuku played around with the mechanic before Kaminari blasted him off stage. Izuku jumped to the ledge, but Kaminari deftly slapped him off. Last stock, better get ready to feel the burn. Katsuki, watching silently from the corner, said, don't let your guard down. Robots are sneaky little shits. Well, that's rude, Kaminari said as he threw everything he had at the Water Hose Duo. Izuku parried every hit. Download complete, Izuku said. Commencing attack. On the next hit, Izuku attacked immediately off the parry. The two heroes worked in tandem, slapping Endeavor back and slipping him up with water until a well-timed combo attack spiked Endeavor off the side. Holy shit, that desync, Kaminari said, his jaw slack with shock. How long have you been playing this? 3 minutes and 12 seconds. Kaminari played more cautiously, but the slightest mistake turned into a 30-hit combo and an unceremonious off-stage dunking. When Izuku's victory stage came up, Kaminari demanded a rematch. Izuku picked the water hoses again, while Kaminari hastily selected All Might and pressed start. Dude, that's not manly, Kirishima said, scowling. Whoops, it was a misclick, Kaminari said with a wolfish grin. Ah well, let's play it out. Kaminari rushed in, throwing a barrage of punches that could shatter shields and KO in one hit. Izuku parried each one and caught All Might in a combo. All Might took 0 damage and barely flinched from each strike, but Izuku kept the combo going, using consecutive blasts of water to slowly but surely raise All Might higher. Eventually, All Might reached the top blast zone, soared towards the screen, and gave the camera a thumbs up before jumping back onto the stage. I didn't even know he had his own KO animation, Kaminari whispered in awe as All Might rose once more. In the end, the game was forcibly declared a draw, though everyone knew who really won. Well, at least that wasn't a tournament match, Kaminari said. My reputation is secure. Juro smirked and held up her phone. 50,000 views already. A crowd gathered at the heart of the cafeteria. On one half of the table, Izuku Midoriya sat perfectly still, staring forward with unblinking eyes. On the other, Kirishima grinned, his whole face, even his eyeballs hardened, as he met Izuku's gaze. Aoyama said, "Mon ami, what a brilliant display of machismo. All 35 of my eyeballs are watering just watching them," Shoji added with a shudder. How deeply they stare into the abyss, Tokiyami muttered darkly, I can only wonder how they haven't gone mad. Go shitty hair, Bakugo howled. For freedom, for humanity, strike a blow against the machine. Kirishima's grin slipped, he slowly rolled his head, never breaking eye contact with Izuku, and his eyelids twitched. Water me, Kirishima said, holding out one hand. You have had 3 water bottles already, Iida chastised, while Midoriya hasn't had any. I believe it is a violation of the unspoken rules of the game you are playing with your opponent, and as such. Bakugo shoved Iida aside and slapped a water bottle in Kirishima's hand. Kirishima spurted the water all over his face, letting it run over his eyes. Money changed hands quickly as Kaminari and Mineta set up a betting ring on the next table. Step up, we've got 5-to-1 odds favoring the Green Gazer, place your bets, we've only got 5 minutes before the bell. Yaoyorozu drove up with a dump truck full of yen. I'd like to bid all of it on Midoriya. Kaminari and Mineta went pale. Maximum bets 1,000. Kaminari started shouting, but Mineta slammed a hand over his mouth. Dude, think of how much we'd win. Are you insane? Just look at Izuku, there's no way he'll. We'll take that bet, Mineta shouted for him. Kirishima dug his nails into the table as his eyeballs yet again burned. His vision blurred and his head swam, but he ground his teeth and gave a thunderous war cry. I don't care if my eyeballs bleed. I don't care if they fall out of my head. I will not blink. Izuku cocked his head. You will not. Why? Is there something wrong with your eyeballs? No, there is not, and I definitely do not need to blink. Oh, okay then, so why aren't you blinking? Kirishima nearly blinked at that. Because we're having a staring contest. A staring contest. Izuku's eyes went unfocused for a moment. Ah, I understand now. The objective is to keep my eyes open for as long as possible, correct? Wait, so, you weren't trying to keep your eyes open before? Was I supposed to blink them? I have a subroutine written that makes me blink at periodic intervals, but I deleted it because the random digits it generated were plugging into my ICBM launch coordinates. Kirishima's eyelids snapped shut with the force of a speeding train, and the resounding clink of hardened skin on hardened skin boomed across the cafeteria. Damn it! Bakugo, Mineta, and Kaminari all shouted at once. Thank you for coming with me, Kota signed as he and Izuku approached a cat cafe. I've wanted to come here for a while. It is no problem, Izuku replied as he held open the door. I am very good at opening doors. Puzzled, Kota walked in with Izuku. Cats roamed about the fuzzy furniture, bounding up perches and across catwalks overhead, lounging in people's laps and swiping food off of tables. The waitress brought over cappuccinos the moment they sat down. While Kota sipped his, Izuku shoveled the entire mug into his mouth. Are you going to eat that? Izuku asked, pointing at Kota's empty cup. Kota passed his across the table, and down the hatch it went. A cat hopped onto Izuku's lap. Purring like a motor, the cat leaned into Izuku's warm body. Wow, that cat really likes you, Kota signed. Cats like me a lot. Mom never let me get one because they scratch anytime someone tries to pry them off me. Hearing the sounds of feline bliss rumbling from the cat by Izuku, more cats came stalking over. Within minutes, Izuku had cats draped across his shoulders, clinging to his arms, rubbing against his legs, and otherwise taking up every square inch of available space radiating heat. Are you okay, Izuku? Kota asked. I am in optimal physical condition, Izuku answered, his voice muffled by the sheer volume of purring cats covering him. Kota tried reaching for one, telling the cat that it needed to come off, but the cat scratched his hand. Kota gawked, as for the first time, an animal refused to listen to him. Screams came from the cafe's entrance, and customers ran for the emergency exits. Bigger cats barged in, a lion, a tiger, and a cheetah in a bear costume, oh my. The larger felines growled, and the army of small cats hissed and arched their backs, refusing to give ground. Kota backed away, his face nearly white from panic as the felines exchanged racial slurs and threatened genocide on their species. Izuku stood, the cats covering his body like armor, and approached the lion. "You are a big cat," Izuku said as he scratched it behind its ear. "Who is a good boy?" The lion gave a contented purr and rolled over for Izuku. As he rubbed its belly, the others came over, and before long, Izuku had 3 big cats clinging to his body. "Are you sure that's safe?" "I will not crush the cats," Izuku replied. "I learned how to control my strength." As Kota pondered that worrying statement, the ceiling burst apart in a thunderous crash. A giant eye peered through the hole and widened when it saw Izuku. A giant, furry body squashed the roof, burying half the cafe, as a cat the size of a skyscraper glomped Izuku. From underneath the titanic cat, Izuku scratched its chin and said, "You are a very big kitty." The cat's purring registered on seismographs across the world. "Thank you for agreeing to this," Shoji said as he tore a hole in the fabric of reality with his bare hands, pulling back the tapestry of science and logic to expose a roiling mass of eldritch horrors and unknowable sensations lying behind the thin, fragile curtains protecting mankind's sanity. "It is no problem," Izuku said. "I will be a hero, and it is a hero's job to assist in any way they can." "Yeah, well, my parents insist I bring someone over, even though last time I tried, Tokiyami's eyeballs melted. I'm hoping you'll be a bit more durable, or failing that, fixable." "I am very fixable," Izuku agreed. "Should I bring anything? I have never been to a friend's house before." "You'd best not. Material objects from this side of the divide have no identity to hold themselves together." Shoji stepped forward, and Izuku stepped after him. For precisely 52.6 centimeters, distance had fixed proportions of 1 centimeter per centimeter. Beyond 52.6 centimeters, a centimeter could be a mile, or a watt, or even a tarantula. Up became down became sideways, red tasted like scratchy nylon and jazz felt yellow. I would go on, but I've got blood leaking out my nose. For an eternity and an instant, Shoji led Izuku through the unknowable madness. The swirling cosmos of rubber ducks and Schrödinger cats parted to reveal a suburban home, its neatly trimmed lawn and picket fence stretched across a Mobius strip. As they approached the door, Shoji said, "Whatever you do, don't look my parents in any of their eyes." The moment the door opened, Izuku beheld a veritable ocean of eyes, sliding along the walls, peering out from under the oven, and swinging from the ceiling fan. "Welcome home, Shoji," a motherly voice bubbled out of the sink. "And you brought a friend. Who is this?" "Hello," Izuku said, holding out his hand. "My name is Izuku Midoriya. It is a pleasure to meet you." The tablecloth shook his hand. "Why do you only have 2 eyes, child? Did something happen to you?" Shoji facepalmed. "Mom, we talked about this." "Really? I thought that happened 2 years from now. Should I have more eyeballs? I was under the impression that it was most optimal to have 2. Izuku's skin parted as eyeballs grew out of his arms and chest. "Is that better? Ooh, I really like the color. Why don't you boys have some dessert? They're fresh out of the dishwasher." A chair scuttled over with a stack of miniature plates, still steaming hot, sitting atop a giant oatmeal cookie. Izuku took a huge bite, chomping ceramic and pastry alike. "Well, how are they? I think I tasted a W. Was that cinnamon you used? You've got good taste." The curtains triumphantly held a bottle made of cinnamon with glass dust inside. "What a mad banquet of darkness," Shoji muttered. Then he shook himself. "Great, now I sound like Tokiyami." "Good morning, Midoriya-san." Iida gave a crisp salute as Izuku entered the kitchen. "A wonderful day for studying, is it not?" "Indeed," Izuku agreed. "The current ambient temperature and humidity are both highly agreeable for the functioning of my core processors." "Which subject do you prefer studying?" I do not have a favorite. Showing favoritism towards any particular subject could cause me to neglect the rest of my education. Bakugo, hiding above the refrigerator, glared at them both through a pair of binoculars. Of course, how could I be so blind? He has freaking mufflers sticking out of his legs. Must be a prototype model. Iida opened the fridge, oblivious to the death glare above him, and asked, "Would you care for any refreshments, Midoriya-san?" Izuku held up a carton of motor oil. "I have all the lubrication I need. Thank you." Iida took out the carton of orange juice and poured it all into a really tall glass before neatly folding the empty carton and sorting it next to the other neatly folded recyclables. As they drank their shared refreshments, Izuku said, "That is 5 times the normal amount of orange juice a person drinks for breakfast on average. Is there a reason you drink so much orange juice?" "The vitamin C fuels my quirk," Iida said. "Without it, my engines would stall." Furious scribbling sounds came from above the fridge as Bakugo wrote down Iida's weakness. "Does motor oil help your quirk as well?" "You are correct," Izuku answered. "It is a highly efficient fuel source and also provides lubrication." More scratching sounds came from above the fridge. Iida frowned in its direction and said, "I do hope that is not a rat." Izuku cocked his head. "I thought rats were allowed on the premises. We even have one for a principal." Iida hurriedly shook his head and said, "No offense meant to Nezu-san, of course. I merely meant a rat of the non-intelligent variety, one that could pose as a vector of disease and destruction of property. If such is on the premises, we would need to hire an exterminator post-haste." Bakugo froze, thinking that rat was some robotic code word for spy. Izuku said, "I have found 26 exterminators within a 20-mile radius of our current location. Would you prefer that I sort them alphabetically, by distance, or by price?" Bakugo leapt, knocking over the fridge. "I know the truth. And soon, so will everyone else. You'll never take me alive." "Hey!" Iida shouted after Bakugo. "Running on the premises is a violation of Part C, Section 14 of the school rulebook." Izuku looked at the fallen fridge and asked, "Are you going to eat that?" No." Izuku bit the refrigerator. He morphed into a green copy of the fridge and shuffled into the cubby where it had stood. "I am a refrigerator now. Insert temperature-related pun here." Iida adjusted his glasses and said, "You are a very odd person, Midoriya-san." "All right everyone," Iida shouted as 1A and 1B students trickled into the mall. "Pair up, and meet in the food court for lunch at precisely 1 p.m. Ochako gingerly made her way towards Izuku. "So, would you mind shopping with me? I don't really want to get much of anything, just look around." "Acknowledged. We will go together." As they wandered around, a clothing store caught Ochako's eye. "I used to dream about getting clothes from here," Ochako said in awe as she stared at a classy dress adorning a mannequin. When she saw the price tag, she winced. "Mind if I look around?" Reverently wandering through the aisles, Ochako gave the designer clothing wide-eyed stares. A cute blouse with a stylized mochi print on the front caught her eye. She held it up and said, "What I wouldn't give to have clothes like these." Then she shook herself and slapped her cheeks. "Nope, it's fine. Thrift store clothes have their own style to them." She looked down at her faded, threadbare tank top and torn jeans, and sighed. Izuku's eyes lit up, and a glowing green line passed over the tank top. 19 coupons detected for selected merchandise. Calculating optimal coupon usage for maximum discount. Izuku's mouth widened into a slit, and a whirring noise came out of him as he printed out a long slip of coupons. Ochako took the coupon trail, and as she examined it, her eyes lit up. "Hey Izu-kun, are there any more coupons you can find?" The cashier of the designer store discreetly listened to pop music on his earbuds when the music abruptly switched to an Elden Ring boss theme. Sweating, the cashier asked, "Why do I hear Dark Souls music?" The slow, shrieking creak of shopping cart wheels caught his attention. The cashier gawked as a veritable mountain of clothing, shoved into the bulging, groaning framework of the poor shopping cart that threatened to burst apart with every rattle of its wheels, trundled its way up to his register. With a resigned internal groan, the cashier scanned each item and shoved them into shopping bags until they nearly burst. "All right then," the cashier said, wiping sweat from his face. Your total comes out to. Hold on, Ochako said, I have a few coupons. Izuku brought a second shopping cart. If the first had been a mere mountain of clothing, this one was Everest itself. The teetering stack of coupons left paper cuts on the ceiling as it wobbled its way towards the register. When the cart stopped, the coupon pile pitched forward, burying the cashier. The cashier held back tears as he scanned the coupon stack one discount at a time. Ochako, carrying 4 bags on each arm, said in a strained voice, that was a lot of fun. We should do that again sometime. Izuku, having sprouted 20 arms and carrying bags in each, looked back as the cashier shuttered the doors and slapped an out of business sign out front. How long can you stretch out your tape? Kaminari asked. Shiro checked his elbows. You know, I have no idea. Izuku scanned the tape, calculating maximum length. After a short pause, Izuku said, calculations insufficient. Performing field test. Wait, hold on, what are you? Before Shiro could protest, Izuku grabbed both strands of tape and ran across campus. A deafening thud boomed across UA as Izuku ran straight through the barrier. As the tape unwound around Shiro's elbows with a deafening whine, he licked his lips and said, wow, I'm getting thirsty. Does anyone have any water? Kaminari offered his bottle. Yeah, sure, you can have a sip. Shiro chugged it down, crushing the plastic into a thin disc. More, he gasped. As he downed every water bottle available, Ojiro ran off and said, I'll get a cooler. Another deafening crash announced Izuku's return to campus. He came in from the other direction, with tape trailing behind him. Newspapers, garbage cans, a hissing raccoon dog, and an entire tree streamed by as Izuku bulldozed through the other side. How far did he go? Shoji asked. A kangaroo, kicking and biting at the tape snaring it, answered his question. Following it came a cart of pineapples, the W from Hollywood, one very confused cow, Mickey Mouse, or rather, a hapless, underpaid acting intern stuffed in a sweat-stained mouse costume, a perfectly cooked beef Wellington, the Leaning Tower of Pisa, a Karen demanding to speak with a manager, and a 10-seat bicycle. Shiro's skin shriveled up as the tape continued to unfurl from his elbows. Can't feel kidneys. Hold on, Ojiro said, lugging over a whole truckload of water coolers. The hydration is here. As he appended the cooler into Shiro's mouth, the wrinkles disappeared, and color returned to Shiro's skin. Within seconds, he became mummified once more, and Ojiro opened another cooler. Hurry, start a bucket brigade, he shouted. 1A sprang into action, hauling water coolers and dragging hoses over. Torrents of water disappeared down Shiro's gaping mouth. Izuku came and went several times, dragging more and more of the world's ecosystem and national landmarks behind him, until the campus overflowed with international detritus. The Sphinx had the Eiffel Tower up its nose, Lady Liberty danced with the Colossus of Rhodes, and Tokyo Tower remained where it was, albeit festooned with a ribbon of tape coated in howler monkeys and peanut butter. As Izuku made another lap through UA, the tape suddenly went taut. Izuku gave it a few more tugs and declared, that far. Great, Sato said from underneath the layer of tape. Now, could you get us out of here? The other UA students all struggled to free themselves from the clump Izuku had tied them in. Further beyond the campus, cars whined and struggled against the tape draped over them, boats floundered in tape-covered water, and even airplanes remained stuck to the ground. Sure, I'll help. Laser beams from Izuku's eyes vaporized the tape, much to everyone's relief. I fail to understand how this game is supposed to help us improve as heroes, Iida said, staring skeptically as everyone lined up on both sides of the pool. Kaminari quickly said, it's for situations where we might need to hold our breath. It's important for us to know our limits. Ah, I see, a very good idea, I beg forgiveness for doubting your wisdom. Kirishima gave the countdown. On 3, everyone jumped in, including Izuku, who hit the water in a belly flop with a mighty, wince-inducing slap. Mineta struggled to stay at the bottom, as the spheres on his head tried to drag him up, while Izuku and Kirishima sank like stones. Once everyone settled at the bottom, they sat around and waited, all grinning at each other. After 2 minutes, Sato tapped out first. The rest of 1A quickly followed suit, leaving Izuku and Tsuyu at the bottom. They've been down there for a while, Kaminari said nervously after some time had passed. You think they're okay? Tsuyu's a frog, so she's fine. But Izuku, I dunno, man, do you think he's stuck down there? He can literally turn into a boat, Ochako said with a done with this expression. I'm sure he's fine. After more time passed, Mineta asked irritably, how much longer is this going to take? I want to head back in with all the girls. Shiro raised an eyebrow at him. With how bad you were at holding your breath, I doubt you'd get much of a view. Mineta sputtered indignantly at the charges while most the guys laughed and most the girls resolved to tie up Mineta the next time they went swimming. Iida raised his hand and said, I believe we should go check on them. It is our duty as classmates to ensure their health, and they have remained down there for a concerning amount of time. And it'd be great to get back to swimming, Shiro pointed out. Everyone dove back in, only to find that the pool was empty. No way, they both jumped in with us, right? How did they sneak out? Have we been staring at an empty pool for half an hour? And which one of them won? Meanwhile, in the men's restroom on the 3rd floor, Tsuyu wriggled her way through the U-bend and out the toilet. In the stall next to her, Izuku burst through the plumbing, shattering the toilet into a million pieces. Do I even want to know why the pool's circulation system connects to the bathrooms? Tsuyu asked with a shudder. Power Loader is not a good plumber, Izuku replied as he picked ceramic shards out of his hair. Should we go back downstairs and inform everyone that the game is over? Tsuyu thought it over. Nah, I'm sure they noticed we got Ed into that drain. Now, if you'll excuse me, I need a shower. With all the soap. As Izuku walked through the doors to UA, an anvil fell on top of his head. Finally, Bakugo shouted from the hallway. Today marks the liberation of mankind. Down with the machines. Izuku stood up. A noticeable dent flattened the top of his head, and his eyes had an unfocused glaze. Trauma craniano grave detectado. Sistemas de memoria comprometidos. Configuricos de idioma padrão corrompidos. Por favor, reinicios arquivos de backup. Sounds like he's speaking French, Kaminari said, scratching his head. Anyone know where Momo is? Aoyama twirled through the doors, throwing glitter everywhere. Moi can speak French. Allow me to translate like the dazzling star that I am. Okay. Can you tell what he's saying? Give me a moment. Aoyama cleared his throat and said, Je voudrais commander une grosse explosion s'il vous plaît. Portaria nuclear preparada. Insira as coordenadas de lancamento. Aoyama whispered in Kaminari's ear, he wants a baguette. Poor Midoriya must have taken quite the hit to his head. Do you think we should take him to Recovery Girl? I'll call as him. Cell aprendra un gross flash a Recovery Girl. Reconhecido. Mirando M. Ohio. Iniciando a sequencia de lancamento. Izuku's jaw opened and stretched outward. His head tilted up until it directly pointed at the ceiling. Kaminari nervously asked, Aoyama, what's he doing? He's doing, neck stretches. Yes, making sure that he hasn't suffered any spinal injuries. Assurez vous qu'il ne reste rien. A low rumble came from Izuku's chest. Without moving his mouth, Izuku said, Cinco. I think he's counting, Kaminari said as he debated sprinting as far away from the ominous noises as possible. Are you sure you're understanding him? Of course I am. He's counting for breathing exercises. Everything is just fine. Ceci est fait parce que quelqu'un dans un chat m'a dit de le faire. Quattro. Trace. He's not breathing Aoyama. He never needs to breathe. It's a figure of speech. There's nothing to worry about. Vous l'avez demandé. Doigt. The rumble turned into a fiery roar as a missile shot out of Izuku's mouth and tore a hole clean through UA's roof. Kaminari and Aoyama watched the missile streak across the morning sky. I'm pretty sure that's something to worry about, Kaminari said faintly. Meanwhile, across the pond, two old men were bickering over who got to live in a White House when the Secretary of Defense sprinted in, his face white as a sheet. We're being nuked, the first old man said primly. This cannot be allowed to stand. Tell Russia that we will not tolerate any further acts of aggression. Russia. Nah, it's not Russia, Putin's a great guy, had vodka with him last Thursday. Nah, probably those pesky Mexicans, wanting to tear down my wall. What wall? You haven't even built one. It's a figure of speech. You said it was concrete. The secretary got off the phone. They nuked Ohio. It's gone. The two old men both looked at each other. Great, one said. Now how are we supposed to decide who wins? Tokiyami ran an oiled rag over the length of a replica sword when the lights went out, throwing the room into an eerie, candlelit gloom. Fumikage, a voice rasped from everywhere and nowhere at once. Tokiyami brandished the blade. Stay back, foul demon. I will not succumb to your darkness. A giant black claw reached around the side of the bed. Dark shadow pulled itself up, towering over Tokiyami as it stared down at him with glowing golden eyes. Sweet little Fumikage, Dark Shadow crooned. It's time to hold up your end of the bargain. No, Tokiyami, wide-eyed, pressed himself against the end of his bed, holding the sword out like a holy cross. I won't. I will resist your foul temptation. Dark Shadow cackled. A chorus of laughs rang from every flickering shadow. You agreed to it. I let you use my power to play hero, and in return, Dark Shadow leaned closer, its beak nearly touching Tokiyami's blade. You do what I want for a change. It's madness. Tokiyami roared at the shadowy being before him. He swung the sword, which passed harmlessly through Dark Shadow. I won't. You can't make me. Dark Shadow stopped the blade with a talon. With a single squeeze, the sword broke into a dozen metal shards. Tokiyami held the metal stump before him in a trembling grip. Why must you deny who you are? Dark Shadow gently dragged a talon across Tokiyami's face. You'll feel so much better once you stop resisting. Stay back. Tokiyami pressed the jagged metal edge against his throat. Come any closer, and I'll end both of us. I swear it. All at once, the darkness subsided. Dark Shadow shrank down and backed away. Dude, seriously. I will defy the madness of my abyss with my dying breath. Dark Shadow reached under the bed and pulled out a frilly pink shirt. You would literally rather die than wear this. Tokiyami hissed at the offending garment and waved the sword at it. Begone, foul specter. You will not tempt me. Come on. I'm so sick and tired of you drowning yourself in black all the time. It's like you're trying to hide from the world. Now pink, that would make your feathers pop. Throw a bit of pale yellow in there, some nice cream colors to tie it all together. I don't want it. Stop trying to make me. You do realize I am a manifestation of your subconscious, right? I know exactly what you want. Lies. Slander. I will not be deceived. Dark Shadow sighed. You know what? Fine. I'm done trying to do this the nice way. Before Tokiyami could react, Dark Shadow snatched the broken blade out of his grasp. Then he held the shirt aloft. Time for a makeover. Tokiyami burst out of his room, screaming for dear life, as Dark Shadow chased him with the pink shirt. As the students of 1A watched the chase unfold, Mina asked, "Is that my shirt?" All right, listeners. Present Mike shouted at the students assembled before him. Are you ready to rock? Bakugo gave his drumsticks a twirl while glaring at Izuku, and despite his nervous posture, Kota's fingers danced along the strings of his electric bass, but aside from those two, the assembled students, awkwardly carrying the instruments Present Mike had dumped on them, decidedly looked unready to rock. Why am I the one conducting? Juro asked, trying to shrink in on herself under the collective gaze of her 19 classmates. You're the one with the best ears for music. Literally. So, take it away, and we can get the Mike Show Student Special surprise rolling. Your attempts to capitalize on my punk sensibilities offends every fiber of my being, Juro said flatly. I'll buy pizza afterwards. At Juro's continued skepticism, Present Mike added hesitantly, vegan, sustainable pizza. You heard the man, Juro barked. Places people, get your instruments tuned and turn to page 7. Izuku held his hand up. Juro sighed and said, yes, what is it? I was unable to find an online tutorial for tuning my instrument. Could you please provide reference material? Sure. Show me what you got. Izuku held up his instrument. Juro stared at it for a long moment before asking, Izuku, what is that? A jar of mayonnaise. Mayonnaise is not an instrument. Online reference material demonstrates that mayonnaise is classified as a musical instrument. Midoriya, you stand in the halls of modern musical entertainment, built by heroes of their time like Bob Marley, John Lennon, and Eminem, and to this pantheon of human expression, you bring a jar of mayonnaise. Should I have brought two? Izuku, you can't play a jar of mayonnaise. Do you require a demonstration? A demon fine, whatever. Izuku twisted the cap off the jar, starting his song with the firm, wet pop of a broken vacuum seal. One hand tapped the top of the lid and ran a fingernail along the side, creating a popping beat with sizzling punctuation, while the other hand dumped a dollop of mayonnaise on the floor, to add wet staccato plops to the party. Within seconds, half the class bobbed along to Izuku's symphony in mayonnaise. Prodded on my present mic, Kota added a bass riff to the party, playing softly so he didn't overwhelm the condiment. Bakugo, on the other hand, slapped his drums as loudly as possible, trying to drown out the mayonnaise and end the robot's ploy to brainwash people with mayo music, but no matter how hard he pounded, he couldn't erase the sound of wet plopping mayo. Once Izuku finished his demonstration, Jiro pinched her forehead. Fine, I'll admit, that was pretty rockin'. But, please, I'm begging you, pick a different instrument. Understood. Izuku swallowed the jar of mayonnaise in one bite. He left, and came back in with a gnarled, pungent root. Holes were carved along its length in a crude imitation of a piccolo. Horseradish isn't an instrument either. Class 1A, in full mourning regalia, sat in pews in front of a closed casket. A picture of Mineta, with him ogling someone's chest, had flowers strewn around it. Aizawa cleared his throat and said, "We are gathered here today to mourn the passing of Mineta Minoru. Out of all the students I have ever taught in my class, he was one of them." Kaminari went up to speak. "I mean, he was a chill guy, once you got to know him, but he might have taken it just a teensy bit far sometimes." "He called me flat," Jiro said with a glare. Aoyama's tuxedo glittered with all the sequins and fake gemstones sewn into it. "Am I not dazzling? Bask in my radiance." "I've filed 17 harassment complaints," Tsuyu said. "I think I'll file another one after this." Bakugo scoffed. "We don't need weaklings like him in the war against robots." Hagakure, visible only by her floating dress, said, "He stared directly at my ass even when I was totally invisible. It was super creepy. I couldn't pay him enough money to leave me alone," Yaoyorozu admitted. 10 billion yen, and he refused it all. "I'm not sure if I should be flattered or concerned." Mina huffed. "I like attention and all, but he was too much even for me. Not to mention, there's that one time he said he wouldn't mind if it burned after we did it. I know he was talking about my quirk, but still, rude." Izuku ate some of the flowers. "This complimentary salad bar is quite delicious. My compliments." The chapel doors flew open. Mineta strode in and stared at the pictures and casket with visible confusion. "Why do I have a funeral?" "This is your chapter," Aizawa said. "You get physical trauma heaped on you by the author on a regular basis. Imagine how much worse it'll be since you have an entire drabble devoted to you." "Yeah, no offense dude, but you're a goner," Kaminari said. "Any chance I can have your stuff when you kick it?" "You guys, relax. This story's rated PG-13, what's the worst that can happen?" The chapel doors burst open in a shower of wooden splinters. Maruko strode in, arms crossed and glaring down at Mineta. 420 big sticky balls 69, I've found you at last. You'll pay for saying I'm secretly a bottom. Nobody tops me, nobody. Mineta sprinted towards the window. The entire wall burst apart as Yukio, in full dragon form, smashed her way inside. "You said my scales were too rough and ugly. I'll show you exactly how rough and ugly I can be." Mineta beelined it for the other wall, only for the entire roof to rise up as an enormous hand lifted it. Mount Lady scowled down at him. "I do not make my S bigger with my quirk, and you'll pay for starting that rumor." Guys, a little help." Mineta looked back at the pews. They were empty. "Mina, what are you doing?" Mina hurriedly dragged Ochako into her hiding spot behind a potted plant. "SSH, be viewy queet. Why are you wearing a cowboy hat? It's a disguise. That vest too, and is that a pistol on your hip?" Ibo wowed it Fwum Snipe. And why are you speaking with an accent? You sound like. Mina pressed a finger over Ochako's lips. He's a viewy twicky midawaya. He can ha anything. I'm talking like this so he doesn't ha me coming. And why? Ochako asked in a harsh whisper, are you stalking Izuku in a cowboy outfit? I've hugged Eve Ybody S in the shoof, Mina complained, but midawaya. Every time I twy to hug him, he runs away from me. So, I'm going to give him a supwise hug. Maybe there's a good reason that Izuku doesn't want a hug from you. Ochako asked, and maybe you should respect other people's boundaries. I'm Su Midawaya's just shy. One hug, and he'll come around. You'll see. I don't know, this doesn't seem like a good SSH. He's coming. Izuku's footsteps clanked down the hallway. Eyes staring blankly forward, feet moving in clunky, robotic movements, Izuku stomped past their hiding spot behind the tree without a sideways glance. Got you, Mina shouted as she wrapped her arms around Izuku. Under her hug, Izuku's skin bubbled. Within seconds, his entire body melted into a fizzling metallic puddle at Mina's feet. What did you do? Ochako shouted. I don't know. Mina tried scooping the puddle back into an Izuku-like shape, only for it to slip through her fingers. I didn't even use my quirk. Quick, call recovery girl, she can fix him. From a puddle, she fixed Mineta after those heroes pounded him into grape jelly last week. Good point, I'll go get her. As Ochako turned around, she came face to face with Izuku. He leaned against the potted plant and took a bite out of a metal carrot. It made sharp screeching sounds as Izuku's teeth ripped it apart. What's up Mina? Izuku. Mina glanced between Izuku and the puddle. What? How? Simulation of a Shido hug complete. Estimated probability of survival, 0.0062%. Continuing evasive protocol. You get back here you washly varmint. Mina lunged towards Izuku, who hopped into a hole in the floor. Mina narrowly missed him and went flying into a stack of papers Semnitas had in his arms, scattering graded paperwork all over the place. As Ochako watched the comedy unfold, recovery girl stopped by. Ah, you look a little pale, dearie, she told the puddle. A kiss and a gummy will fix you right up. When she kissed the puddle, a gaping maw, ringed by grasping tentacles, rose from the metallic murk. As it spoke in an eldritch tongue and grabbed at Ochako, recovery girl stuck a gummy in its mouth. It gave a glass-shattering wail, and it swallowed itself out of reality with a wet squelch. There, all better. I'm glad you all could join me, Todoroki said as he adjusted his solid gold monocle and drank gold tips imperial out of a Chinese emperor's finest china. His freshly tailored three-piece suit still had a price tag, one with an obscene number of zeros, sticking out of the sleeve. I am most pleased to accept, Iida said, jerking his arms yet never spilling a drop of tea. I am honored that you consider me a close enough friend to invite to a pleasant outing. Yes, this is great, Yaoyorozu said, but even I think it's a little much. Did we really need to get gold leaf on our ice cream? It was 4,000 extra, Todoroki said. Izuku examined his empty cup. Is it acceptable to consume the china as well? Todoroki passed his cup over as well. Eat as much as you like. I refuse to spare any expense. Izuku chucked the china into his mouth and ground it into powder. Their waiter, upon seeing the casual destruction of priceless historical artifacts, aged 30 years and fell into a coma. Oh dear, Todoroki said as he beheld the fallen waiter. He set a credit card on the unconscious man's chest. I shall pay for his medical fees as well. Not that I'm not grateful, Yaoyorozu said hesitantly, but is there a reason you're spending more money than most countries? I don't like my dad. Iida glared at him. Todoroki, I thought better of you. Trying to financially ruin your father because you have a negative opinion. Todoroki let his scar catch the light. A flash of surprise, followed by cold determination settled onto Iida's face. He bit into his own china and called for another. You know, Todoroki said wistfully, no matter how much caviar and truffles I buy, it never feels like enough. I wish I had a better way to waste money. A shadowy figure emerged from behind a potted plant, holding a cell phone. Excuse me, young man, but could I interest you in a mobile game? Endeavor rubber-stamped expense reports for hospital fees and insurance claims when an intern came in with another stack of papers. Far be it from me to judge, the intern said shakily, but aren't you letting your son spend a little much? Endeavor took in the enormous figure at the bottom of the bill. Good, he's spending more. It's just a matter of time that he realizes I am only acting in his best interests and commits to learning how to incinerate his foes, just like his old man. I see. Excuse me. As the one intern went to the door, another flung it open. Panting, suit in disarray, the intern blurted out, Shoto just made a Raid Shadow Legends account. He's already bought the starter pack. Endeavor's flames snuffed out, and Enji went pale as a ghost. In a thin, defeated voice, Japan's number 2 hero whispered, I'm ruined. Ojiro was bringing up a load of laundry when he saw a floating pair of shorts and t-shirt. Hey Hagakure, didn't see you there. The floating clothes stopped and turned towards him. Yeah, that was a bad joke, wasn't it? Ojiro asked. The floating t-shirt hesitated before giving a stiff shrug. Sorry, I suppose it was a bit rude. It can't be easy living with a quirk like yours. The t-shirt waved a sleeve in a so-so kind of gesture. Ojiro sighed and set his laundry hamper on the dryer. Growing up, I didn't like my quirk. I always wanted something big and impressive like Gang Orca. Instead, I got stuck with this. Ojiro waved his tail around to emphasize his point. It's useful, sometimes, but I always felt like I couldn't be a real hero with something so boring. The t-shirt barely twitched, but the subtle gesture made Ojiro imagine a thumbs up. Chuckling, Ojiro said, thanks for the support. I guess what I'm trying to say is, I never realized how easy I had it until I met you. It must be tough, spending your whole life invisible to everyone. People bumping into you, or forgetting you're there, I can't even imagine what it's like. The t-shirt gave a, you get used to it, sort of shrug, which made Ojiro sigh. You shouldn't have to get used to it. It's not fair that you have to deal with what you do. I mean, the support class never gave you a proper costume. Just boots and gloves. The t-shirt and shorts sauntered forward, pressing close to Ojiro. He hastily backed away and his face flushed. Phew, it's pretty hot in here, isn't it? Ojiro snatched up his hamper. I think I should get this back to my room. And, it was nice talking to you. As Ojiro maneuvered his way around the floating clothes, he met Midoriya standing at the doorway. The other student looked around the room and asked, Ojiro-san, is there a reason that you are holding a conversation with an empty patch of air? Preliminary diagnosis suggests brain cancer, but I require additional autopsies to be sure. Aren't autopsies for dead people? Ojiro asked with a shudder. Besides, I'm not alone, Hagakure is right. Ojiro blinked. An entirely different set of clothes floated next to Izuku. Hi, don't mind me. Hagakure said, I'm here to pick up my laundry. Ojiro looked around for the floating clothes he had spoken to earlier, but no trace of them remained. I think I need to lie down. In a darkened bedroom, a t-shirt and pair of shorts drifted in and shut the door. Then, with a heavy click, Tokiyami turned on the lights. Dark Shadow, Tokiyami growled, are you stealing laundry again? Dark Shadow froze. Pantomiming with the clothes, Dark Shadow said in a falsetto voice, what are you talking about, Fumikage-chan? It's me, Hagakure, let's kiss. Tokiyami grabbed a spray bottle, and Dark Shadow ran away screaming. Ojiro was meditating when he heard his door creak. His door swung open and shut. Weird, Ojiro said, I don't feel a draft. He closed the door and went back to his meditation. Seconds later, he heard a thump. One of his martial arts trophies had fallen off its shelf. Weird, I better make sure the shelf isn't broken. While Ojiro was examining the screws in his shelf, he heard his dresser slide open. His t-shirts and socks flew across the room. Ojiro sighed. Should have realized earlier it was you, Hagakure. Nice job pretending you're a ghost. One of his notebooks floated in midair. Pages tore out of it and scattered across the room. Hey, that's my homework. As Ojiro scooped up piles of paper, invisible hands grabbed Ojiro's shirt and pulled it up over his head. Once Ojiro got his shirt lowered, he saw a message scrawled across his wall, in dripping red blood, that said, you stole my chapter from me. Hagakure, what the heck? Ojiro stared at the wall in horror. Aizawa's going to kill me. Where did you even get that much blood? A paintbrush rose in the air and spelled out, Recovery Girl's office. Don't we need that blood? She never uses it anyways. Huh, good point. Also, stop writing on my wall. Ojiro grabbed at the paintbrush, but it rose out of his reach. With a growl, Ojiro snatched a blanket off his bed and threw it across the room. It floated in midair, and he could see a vague humanoid shape under it. Ha, got you now. Ojiro leapt and grabbed at the form. He felt it give way without resistance under his arms. Ojiro gaped in horror at the empty cloth. Please tell me it's not a real ghost. Objects around his room floated in midair. Stumbling back, Ojiro tripped over a fallen trophy and slammed the back of his head into his bed frame. When Ojiro opened his eyes again, he was transparent, his incorporeal body floated through his bed, and his cold, dead body lay in front of him. Oh my gosh, Hagakure said. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to kill you. Wait, when did you die? Ojiro asked. You guys seriously never noticed? Hagakure huffed. I've been dead for almost a week. Oh, Hagakure, where are you? Are you blind? I'm right in front of you. Ojiro peered around, but Hagakure was nowhere to be seen. Hagakure, I think you're invisible. Yeah, and now you are too. Take that. No, I mean, I still can't see you. Hagakure paused. Well, that figures. Anyways, you want to haunt Mineta? Absolutely. Ojiro felt a strange sensation. When he woke up, Recovery Girl stood over him. Good, you took quite a bump on the head. How are you feeling? Ojiro groaned. What a dream. I thought Hagakure was dead. Don't be silly. Recovery Girl pointed at a floating t-shirt. She's right there. Unheard by everyone, Hagakure screamed, seriously. A light bulb flickered ominously overhead as Bakugo slammed his palms on the rickety wooden table in front of him. He had a bandana around his head, stripes of war paint under his eyes, a tinfoil hat, and enough magnets to cripple the cryptocurrency industry by breathing. I've gathered you all here today because you know the truth. Izuku Midoriya is a robot. Monoma, Shinso, Kirishima, and Todoroki all gazed at Bakugo as he gave his speech. Monoma scoffed and said, of course you 1A must find a silly excuse on which to blame your failures. A robot, really? Will you deny the evidence of your own quirk? Monoma hesitated. I do get blanks, sometimes. But you still copy something, do you not? Shinso gave a tired yawn. I mean, my quirk doesn't work either, but it's probably because Izuku's brain is made of silicon. See, Bakugo shouted. Silicon. Like a robot. Because he is one. I believe you're missing the more obvious truth. Todoroki made a corkboard out of ice and pointed at its glossy surface. He's clearly a cyborg who time-traveled from the future to save mankind from aliens. From a trash can in the corner, Dib, the alien conspiracist quietly stalking Mina from the General Studies course, leapt up and shouted, exactly. Bakugo grabbed Dib and hurled him out of the room. Cyborg, robot, doesn't matter. Fact is, he's a pawn for the machine menace planning to exterminate mankind. A pawn? Kirishima asked. Are we playing chess? I'm not very good at playing chess. My dad always says I move the horse thingy wrong. I mean, an L shape is an L shape, right? Monoma brought out a chess board with a flourish of his sleeve. Au contraire, my 1A simpleton. The knight has a very fixed movement pattern, though it is unique in that it can move regardless of the placement of other pieces. Allow me to demonstrate. Shinso eyed the one-sided chess game and said to Todoroki, mind making a second board? I'm bored. Both chess sets looked identical, but neither side seemed to care as they moved random pieces around. As Bakugo fumed over his precious death to Izuku the robot and all other robot menaces club turned into a chess club, a knock came at the door. I detected chess, Izuku said. Is this a chess club? Bakugo grinned. So, this is your ultimate plan. Distract mankind with board games. Ha, I'll beat you at your own game. Izuku 3D printed a chess set. Bakugo claimed the white pieces and triumphantly pushed a pawn forward 2 spaces. Take that. This is the first step in mankind's triumph over Checkmate in 96. Bakugo's eye twitched. He whispered in Todoroki's ear and took the icy miniature shotgun. There. Now my king has a shotgun. Take that, Deku. Izuku examined the icy edition and 3D printed an arsenal for his own chess pieces. Laser rifles. I believe that is checkmate in 1. Dead silence reigned in the common room. Even Bakugo, spoon halfway to his mouth and dripping with soggy cereal, was at a loss of words. Kirishima, immune to the awkward atmosphere, chuckled and said, I'm feeling super manly, Midoriya my dude. I love the style you're rocking. Did you do something with your hair? Izuku blinked like a Furby. Yes, I have hair. You have head morphology unknown. The weather forecast unavailable, as very warm outside, isn't it? Everyone's head swiveled to the window. Rain pelted against the glass, and a howling wind buffeted the trees. A lawn chair flew past, with an elderly man sipping a piña colada still sitting in it. I get exactly what you mean, Midori bro. Kirishima pumped a fist. A light rain like this is nothing in the face of sheer manliness. I'm going to run 10 miles, and if I somehow fail that, I'll do 300 push-ups to make up for it. As Kirishima sprinted out of the room, leaving a Kirishima-shaped hole, spiky hairdo included, in the wooden door, Kaminari asked, did anyone else just imagine him with bushy eyebrows and green spandex? Izuku turned and stomped over to the kitchen. His hand didn't quite find the refrigerator's handle before pulling. His hand clanked against the closed door before closing and pulling back, and he punched clean through the microwave's door. His finger tapped clumsily on the broken glass, well away from the microwave's buttons, and when Izuku reached back inside, he came away with the entire microwave. He gave it a cursory glance before biting into a corner. A spark leapt out of the microwave. Izuku's body jolted, and smoke billowed from his ears. His body jerked and spasmed, limbs flailed wildly, and a hideous electrical shriek blared from his mouth. Then, after a single horrifying moment, Izuku's face exploded, revealing a mass of metal plate and wires underneath. Mechanical eyeballs twitched listlessly before dimming and falling still. Mineta cautiously nudged the remains with his foot. The head split in half, exposing burnt motherboards inside a charred metal case. No way, Midoriya was a robot. As the class stared in shocked silence, Bakugo rose to his feet. A grin split his face, and sparks crackled in his palm. Yes, Bakugo roared. Finally, your vile plots have been exposed. Victory is mine. Cool, Izuku said. What did you win? Bakugo spun around. There Izuku stood, intact and unburned. Izuku looked at the charred robot on the floor and asked, is anyone going to eat that? After a moment of stunned silence, Izuku ripped an arm off the lifeless robot and bit into it. Izuku belched out a plume of smoke and said, a bit overcooked. Night Eye set the internship acceptance form on his desk. Then adjusted it. The stamp went next to it, parallel with where it would be pressed against the paper. Night Eye scowled. No, not would, could, might. The barest whisper of a chance, given only out of respect of his old mentor. Even though every fiber of his being screamed at him to rip the form to shreds. Neat, parallel, perfect shreds. Midoriya never awoke the quirk. Neither former wielder nor his mentor could awaken the spark of one for all dormant in the boy. And in their desperation, they turned to him. The thought burned, raged like an inferno. He spent years molding Tagata into an ideal candidate, only to be scorned in favor of a lifeless mockery of heroism. Was All Might so blind? Did he not see the blank stare at the camera? Did he not hear the toneless, uninspired drivel of a speech? Did he not feel the existential dread that this inhuman, unfeeling machine pantomiming a hero's presence held his legacy in its cold iron grip? A knock came at the door. Firm, precise. 3 knocks, not the one of an accidental brush against the door, nor the 2 of a casual request to enter, not 4 demanding entry or more implying anger and irritation. 3. Formal, polite. 2 perfect. Night Eye frowned. Enter. The door opened, exactly 90 degrees. Hair groomed down to each meticulous strand, face blank, unblemished. Hero costume immaculately clean, without a wrinkle on it. Hello, Night Eye. Izuku looked around at the All Might merchandise. Night Eye had it brought in the night before, even the limited edition poster for which he felt heart-wrenching agony when he had put it on the wall with sticky putty. He hunted for the slightest sign of emotion in Izuku's eyes. And in those blank eyes, he saw nothing. Night Eye held out his hand, and Izuku shook it. The hand felt warm to his grasp, the synthetic skin a near-perfect facsimile, but he felt no life in Izuku's fingers. "Thank you for accepting me for the internship. I haven't accepted you yet. And Night Eye never would. You must pass a test first." "Which test?" "I have completed lots of tests, and I got perfect scores on all of them." There was no pride in that statement. Merely fact. Night Eye only felt scorn at it. "The form is on my desk. You have 3 minutes to stamp it." "Understood." Night Eye activated his quirk, and froze. No visions came to him. As Izuku stepped forward, Night Eye grabbed the high-density seals in his pocket. His mind raced through attack vectors Izuku could take. Even blind, he would not let this soulless puppet best him so. "I am done." Night Eye blinked. Izuku held up the form, neatly stamped in the center of the square. "I see." Izuku cocked his head. Was that the test? It did not seem difficult. Centipeder and Bubble Girl shivered as Night Eye's despairing laughter echoed across his agency. Eri wiped tears out of her eyes as she ran through the alleyway. She slipped, scraped her elbows on the pavement, and scrambled back to her feet. She ran as hard and fast as her tiny legs could carry her once the bad man watching her watched the TV instead. She ran until her hands shook. She ran until her feet blistered. She ran until her body felt as though it would all fall apart, that the glue the bird mask man used to put her back together vanished, and there'd be nothing left of her but cold and dark and a pile of dust. Eri ran until she hit a metal wall. She fell, rubbed her nose, and looked up. Green eyes stared down at her, and in a flash, Eri knew who she was looking at. Some bad men watched heroes fighting, until Bird Mask Man made them stop. "Are you okay?" the hero asked. "People are not normally okay when they collide with me. Do you require medical assistance for the cancerous tumor on your forehead?" The other hero elbowed him in the ribs and winced from the impact. "Deku, you're scaring her. Let me try." He knelt and gave Eri a brilliant smile. "Hi there, I'm Lemillion. Are you lost? We can help you find your parents." Her father was gone, and her mother gave her to the Bird Mask Man. Fighting back tears, Eri said, "I know where I'm going." "Then why don't we help you get there? You can tell your parents that you got to meet some heroes today." Eri started backing away and froze when she heard footsteps behind her. A chill ran down her spine when he heard Overhaul say, "There you are." Lemillion flinched slightly. With a strained voice, he asked, "Is she your daughter?" Overhaul gave him a frosty glare. "Yes, she's being difficult right now." Deku looked between the two. "You are her parent. There are numerous phenotypical differences that indicate a lack of blood relations." Overhaul tensed. "She is adopted." Lemillion, with a forced chuckle, said, "Very kind of you to adopt, good sir. Now, if you'll excuse my partner." Adopted. Japanese laws prevent individuals with criminal records from adopting. Overhaul took off his glove. Eri quivered and tried not to scream. "Not very bright, are you kid? Your partner had the right idea. Do you intend to fight?" Deku asked. "I intend to kill you." "With your quirk, Overhaul, correct?" Overhaul's eyes narrowed. "You know too much. You are Chisaki Kai. My instructions are to not fight you. So, you may go ahead." With an incredulous and wary expression, Overhaul reached out for the hero. With a single touch, Deku was dust. Overhaul wiped his hand and said to the ashen-faced Lemillion, "Let that be a lesson." But for once, Eri wasn't focused on Overhaul. Instead, she picked up the metal finger that had rolled to her feet. She held it close as the Shihasaikai dragged her back to her cell. Eri had a pet caterpillar. It looked like a finger, but fingers didn't move when they weren't attached to hands, so it was a caterpillar. It wriggled around and probed at her hands as Eri clutched it tight to her chest, hoping with all her heart that the bad bird masked men wouldn't find it. They didn't. They locked her in her room without dinner. As her stomach rumbled, she wondered what caterpillars ate. She let the caterpillar inch its way across the room and tap against everything it ran into. Eventually, It tapped a little metal race car. The caterpillar opened up and ate the car. A second caterpillar sprouted out of the side of it. And it was still hungry. Eri dove into her toy box. The toys inside were dusty and neglected, but under the grime, she found 2 tiny remote control cars. She offered them to the caterpillar, and its 2 heads devoured the miniature vehicles, tires and all. 2 caterpillars became 5, and the base where they met swelled up in the shape of a palm. Her caterpillar became a butterfly. And it was still hungry. The butterfly crawled around the ground, bumping into objects and tasting them with its fingertips. Eri looked, but she didn't have any more food. But the air duct, too high to reach and too small for her to crawl through, might have food inside. So, she threw the butterfly. It didn't fly very well, but it hooked around the duct's edge and crawled inside. The butterfly probed the sides of the duct. They were metal, but the butterfly craved a wider variety of compounds than steel. So, it crawled. It eventually overlooked a hallway and saw a security camera perched next to the vent. It ate 1, then 2 more at subsequent vents. The palm stretched out into an entire arm, and an eyeball sprouted on top of the hand. And it was still hungry. It sensed the flow of current in the wires around it. Following the flow of power backwards, the butterfly found 4 power generators. It ate them all. Warnings blared about corrupted blueprints, so the butterfly made more of what it had. A giant arm served as its main body, with 6 arms to propel it along the ground. More arms stuck out the top to consume more metal. And it was still hungry. 5 Yakuza thugs, fumbling in the dark to reach the power room, saw the giant glowing eyeballs in the dark and opened fire. The butterfly ate 5 guns, inspected the components, and made bigger guns of its own. The Yakuza ran, and the butterfly was still hungry. Overhaul cursed and swore as his thugs ran away in a panic. Then he heard the noise, an awful metallic shriek. The building shook, and concrete shattered as a hydra of hands and arms rose from the rubble. Eri sat astride the monster's back and shouted at the night sky, "Go butterfly! Get the bad bird men!" In an imperious tone, Eri called out, "Sit boy!" The 100-foot-tall kaiju of robotic arms and glowing green eyes sat on its haunches. Hundreds of eyes stared down at her. "Now, roll over." The mecha hydra rolled over, flattening an apartment complex. It shook the rubble off itself, ate a refrigerator, and stared silently at Eri. "Good boy." Night Eye fought back a migraine as he took in the chaos around him. Overhaul was in handcuffs and pumped with enough tranquilizers to keep him unconscious for a week, while the police rounded up Yakuza bodies. The Shi-Hasaikai hideout, hidden beneath a picturesque villa, lay stripped and gutted, its concrete shell cracked and strewn about. And in the center of the carnage sat the monster, a nightmarish amalgamation of hands and eyes that chilled him to his soul. Which was also his intern. Night Eye scowled at Lemillion. "What made you think this was a good idea?" Lemillion swallowed nervously. "In my defense, I didn't know what his plan was. I knew he could regenerate, so I figured." Night Eye gestured at the wreckage. "Did you figure that?" Lemillion shuddered. "I'm not the one with a clairvoyance quirk, sir." Eri waved around a piece of rebar. The kaiju's many eyes all tracked its movement. She hurled it as far as she could and shouted, "Fetch!" The kaiju stomped off and returned with a lamp post. Eri patted its front arm and said, "Good boy." Night Eye gave Lemillion a flat look. "You're explaining this to his mother." Lemillion went pale. "But sir, you're the one. It'll be good work experience," Night Eye said coldly. Oh no, I'm losing control of my quirk again." Night Eye grabbed at him, but his hand went right through Lemillion's grinning face before he disappeared. Night Eye sighed, then nearly groaned when Inko Midoriya strode up to him. "Where is he?" Night Eye pointed. Inko looked up and scoffed in disgust. "What a sloppy design. Did his processing core get damaged?" Eri shrank in on herself when Inko approached. "Are you here to take my doggy away?" Inko took out a laptop and rapidly typed a string of code. 2 seconds later, the kaiju's chest opened, and Izuku stepped out. "Hello mother," Izuku said. "I was a butterfly." "That's very nice dear. Let's go." She turned to leave, but Izuku didn't follow. He stared at Eri. "Can we keep her?" Not needing his precognitive quirk to know how badly that would work out, Night Eye said, "She needs to." I'm adopting her. Police custody. Inko snapped her fingers. The kaiju's many hands opened, and multiple gun barrels aimed at him. Eri dear, Inko called. Want a candied apple? Eri hugged the kaiju. Can I keep my doggy? Of course you can. We can make him bigger too. How do you feel about rocket launchers? As the misfit family and their nightmarish pets set off into the sunset, Night-Eye chugged a bottle of aspirin and resolved to make Lemillion handle all the paperwork. Night-Eye wore a rainbow wig and a red rubber nose. The white face paint didn't quite hide the deep bags underneath his eyes. Before him, Izuku stood stock still as the tickle machine assailed him with feathers and rubber chicken noises. Still no reaction, Night-Eye muttered. Very well, you leave me no choice. Centipeder. With a reluctant sigh, Centipeder threw a pie. It hit Night-Eye full in the face, smearing a dollop of whipped cream and banana pudding. Night-Eye unfurled a handkerchief and wiped his face. Anything. Bubble Girl leaned over and made silly faces at Izuku. Nothing, sir, not even a twitch. I could laugh, if you so require, Izuku said. No, Night-Eye spat. A laugh forced is no laugh at all. It needs to come from the heart. Really, my medical databases indicate that laughter would come from the lungs and diaphragm, or the brain if one refers to the electrical stimuli inducing laughter. I fail to see. Yes, Night-Eye snapped. You fail to see. How could I be so blind? Clearly, your brand of humor regards the antics of a lowly clown as far too lowbrow for even the most pitiful chuckle. Centipeder. Sir, I think you need to sleep. Sleep. We don't have time for sleep. We have 12 hours to fashion this stodgy, mechanical excuse of a human being into someone halfway personable. He does not cry. His smiles are manufactured. How can anyone relate to someone without a scrap of emotion in their hearts? If my heart is somehow insufficient, Izuku said, I could always replace it with a new one. See that? Night-Eye asked. That should be funny, but instead, it's depressing. Why? Because he's completely serious, not a humorous bone in his body. But I will find it. Centipeder, get the tape. Centipeder went pale, an impressive feat given that he had carapace instead of skin. Sir, surely not. We are out of options. The last person who watched it laughed until their eyes bled. From the environs of the tickle machine, Izuku nodded sagely. I have seen reports that television causes eye cancer. Oddly, none of those sites cite medical research or have any comments from licensed doctors. Get the tape. Centipeder brought out a cathode ray television. He turned it on and fled. Night-Eye, meanwhile, fastened clothespins onto Izuku's eyelids. Behold, Izuku, mankind's greatest creation. Never again will we match the comedy you shall behold. You will watch, and you will laugh. Do you want me to? Night-Eye shushed Izuku with a finger. Never force a laugh. It taints the soul. From outside the doorway, Bubble Girl whispered, he really needs to sleep. SSH, Mirio said. I want to hear it. The movie played. Within minutes, Bubble Girl and Mirio were howling with laughter. Even Night-Eye guffawed, though he dared not look. But Izuku never laughed. At daybreak, an exhausted Night-Eye, still wearing clown makeup, despaired as Izuku left his agency. I don't understand. How could he not chuckle at Adam Sandler? Bakugo slammed the door behind him and jammed a chair under the door handle. Panting, Bakugo searched the janitor's closet for weapons. The mop, no, that had strings at one end. The broom, did the bristles count? Knowing that sadistic bastard, they were probably denim bristles. Oh Bakugo, even through the door, Bakugo heard the voice plain as day. Hiding isn't very heroic. Bakugo bristled at the comment, but fear won over his pride. Holding his breath, Bakugo rummaged through the closet as quickly as he dared. A rolled-up carpet, a janitor's uniform, piles of towels, was everything in his blasted agency made out of thread. A glint of metal caught Bakugo's eye. A fire extinguisher, of solid metal. Bakugo yanked it out of its holder and clutched it close to his chest. Not coming out, the voice asked, mockingly. And here I thought you were a brave one. Bakugo ground his teeth, but he drew strength from the cold iron in his grip. He would not fall here. The fate of the world rested on his shoulders. He would escape this madman and continue his crusade against all things robotic. Very well, I guess we will have to do this the hard way. Bakugo felt his shirt tighten. Dread crept up his spine as he looked down. A single thread from his shirt wound towards the door. Bakugo grabbed at it, but the thread slipped through his fingers and went under the door. Bakugo ripped his shirt off and scorched it. Then his pants for good measure. Tut tut, didn't anyone ever teach you not to trust your socks? White nylon seized his wrists. Bakugo sawed at them with his teeth, freed a hand, and blasted both his socks to smithereens. Surely you have some dignity, don't you? Bakugo felt his underwear tighten, felt the unspoken threat winding its way around his greatest weakness. Without a sliver of hesitation, Bakugo ripped off his underwear and burnt them to ash. Oh dear, I'm afraid I can't have you running around my agency like that. A rustling sound filled the closet. The mop, the broom, the towels, all unraveled. Flakes of paint sloughed off the threads, revealing blue denim. Bakugo pounded at the door, but the chair was firmly jammed under the doorknob, trapping him inside. Bakugo unleashed a few blasts, but the denim threads caught his wrists. As he bit at them, a denim rope gagged him. Then the denim swarmed over him, and the last sight Bakugo saw was the flickering light bulb that illuminated the dusty closet's shelves. When Bakugo awoke, a suffocating prison of denim squeezed his body, from his neck down to his toes. His hair, heavy with hair gel, felt like a denim sheath. And before his eyes stood a denim puppet, eyes vacant of emotion as they stared into his. Eyes like Deku's. Best Jeanist ran a comb through Bakugo's hair. There, perfect. Bakugo tried to swear, but it came out as MMRPH. Tokiyami had thought he had known true darkness. He had seen behind the curtain of reality shoji parted to reveal a world of madness and chaos. He had visited a suburban home warped beyond the confines of logic and reason, a non-Euclidean edifice warped beyond the brain's ability to perceive space and time. He had seen the shadow of his own soul offer a temptation so foul he could not bear the idea that such desire festered within his heart. But this was a new kind of horror. Mundane, and all the more terrible for it. Hawks sidled up to a woman. Both of them held buckets of KFC chicken. Flashing his best grin, Hawks said in a thick New York accent, "Hey there, good lookin'. We both got buckets of chicken. Wanna do it?" The woman gave him an affronted look and appended her bucket of chicken over his head. Feathers flashed out from behind his back, caught each piece, and dumped them in his bucket. Free chicken. Hey Tokiyami, y'all listenin'? Okay. Grass grows, birds fly, sun shines, and brother. He poked Tokiyami on the beak. I hurt people. On cue, his feathers dragged a thief holding an old lady's purse into an alleyway. The feathers, still red but now dripping in blood, handed the lady her purse and zipped off. Tokiyami knew there was only one response to this madness. He didn't know if he had the courage to say it. I'm a force of nature. A villain leapt out from a dumpster, brandishing a set of long, acid-green fingernails. Hawks batted him aside with a wing and shouted, "Boink! If you were from where I was from, you'd be dead." An apartment burst into flames. Hawk's feathers darted inside and carried out an elderly man and 26 cats. Tokiyami took a deep breath. Dark shadow shuddered beneath him. Tokiyami tapped Hawks on the shoulder and said, "Overwatch is better." For one terrible moment, Hawks froze. Every feather on his back hovered in the air, razor edges pointed at Tokiyami. Dark shadow squeaked and disappeared into Tokiyami's robes. Tokiyami wished he could do the same. Then Hawks burst out laughing. "Oh wow, that's brilliant. And here I thought kids today had no appreciation for the classics. Ha, Overwatch is better than, good one. You were kidding, right?" Tokiyami laughed nervously with him. "Well, Overwatch does have Reaper." Hawk's eyes narrowed. "You were kidding, right?" "Ah, yes, absolutely." The feathers retreated. "Good, I think we've been patrolling long enough. Why don't you go home?" Tokiyami fled as fast as his feet would carry him. As Hawks continued his patrol, saving people and stopping villains with a flick of his feathers, he mused to himself. Which one I should do next time? Heavy. Nah, too Russian. He looked down at his empty chicken bucket and grinned. Putting it over his head, Hawks yelled out, if fighting is sure to result in victory, then you must fight. Shoto looked down at the baseball glove in his hands. How is this supposed to help with training? Sweat dripped down Endeavor's face and fizzled in his fiery mustache. It will train hand-eye coordination and acclimate you to physical projectiles. Shoto tossed a baseball in his hand. And this? It may improve the accuracy of your fire and ice, and even if it doesn't, you never know when you might need to toss a fellow hero some rope or medical supplies. Shoto shrugged. He took his place at the end of the training room and waited. All right, Shoto, I'm going to throw the ball. Shoto's catching mitt hung limply at his side. Okay, Endeavor, I'm waiting. Hesitantly, Endeavor lobbed the ball. It fell well short and rolled to Shoto's feet. Shoto picked it up and examined the stitching. It's not on fire. Why would it be on fire? There's always fire when we train. Endeavor nervously tugged on his costume. Well, I thought we should shake things up a bit. Why don't you throw it back? Shoto thought about throwing it hard, maybe smacking Endeavor on the head, or at least making him run and get it. But he didn't have the energy for that. Underthrowing it would be copying him, so Shoto threw a slow, lazy lob that Endeavor easily caught. Endeavor smiled, or at least tried. The expression buried beneath the flickering flames looked more like the pained grimace he gave news reporters anytime they twisted his arm for an interview. I'll put a bit more pepper on this one. Get ready. Endeavor hurled the ball. Shoto watched it fly a few feet over his head and slam against the far wall. Whoops. Sorry son. Don't know my own strength. Shoto scowled at Endeavor's forced laugh. With a flick of his eyes, Shoto brought the baseball back to him. This time, he coated the ball in a thin layer of ice before throwing it back. It slipped from Endeavor's glove. Whoops, bit of a butterfingers today. Endeavor stretched his arm. Right, third time's the charm, Shoto rolled his eyes and almost missed the baseball hurtling towards him. On reflex, his right hand flicked up and caught it. Perfect, Endeavor shouted when Shoto threw the ball back. I think that will be all for today. Shoto stared. That's it. Endeavor went still. Yes. Is something the matter? My hands aren't shaking, and I'm not about to pass out. You always have me train until this happens. Well, you need your energy for tonight's patrol. Shoto nodded and left. Once he was alone, Endeavor went into the observation room. An intern held up a camera. You got the pictures? Yep. Just like you asked, sir. Good. That should dispel any rumors about child abuse. Have them ready to publish by tomorrow morning. From inside a fake potted plant in the room, Shoto muttered, and I almost thought you were actually trying to be a good dad. As Inko worked on her latest invention, a rabbit walked in through the front door. Hearing the door click shut, Inko turned around. A rabbit. The rabbit put on a fedora. Inko gasped and pointed. Rachel the rabbit. You're just in time to fall right in my trap. A birdcage fell from the ceiling and landed next to the rabbit. The rabbit eyed it skeptically. Whoops. That one's for the intern, Terry the Tanuki. Clearing her throat, Inko said, and you've fallen right in my trap. A second birdcage fell on top of Rachel. Inko laughed triumphantly and fluttered her lab coat. Now that I have you perfectly contained, allow me to give you a detailed outline of my latest and greatest scheme. Since, you know, it'd be pretty boring if no one know how much of a genius I am. But first, the tragic backstory. Rachel held up a copy of this Drabble's script. Inko squinted at it. We don't have the word budget for it. Fine. Then I'll skip to the parallel universe-inator. I first made this hoping to replace myself in a parallel world where I had a child, but then I read this one novel where someone did that and realized it was a bad idea. Like, 1,000 clones of myself brawling in the streets bad. During the monologue, Rachel made a call on her hidden watch and nodded vigorously when Inko checked on her. Then yesterday, I had a brilliant idea. All those 1,000 Inkos, all the machines they invented, I'll take them all and make my son the greatest hero the world has ever seen. With him at the top of the hero listings and suppressing crime, that's when I'll do something and rule the tri-state area. Wherever that is. A meaty thwack came from the window. Inko called out, I reinforced the glass last week. Try the door. A sheepish Tanuki opened the door and walked inside. Terry the Tanuki, so nice to see you. Your trap is right over there. Terry crawled inside the birdcage. Rachel raised an eyebrow at him, and Terry shrugged. Now that I have you both, I'll calibrate the Puinator so you can watch my greatest triumph. With Inko's back turned, Terry passed Rachel a file. Rachel mouthed, seriously, at him, and Terry helplessly shrugged back. With an irritated rabbit huff, Rachel filed through the bars of her cage. A kick from Rachel's legs made it sputter and belch out an acrid plume of smoke. Erg, that stinks. Oh great, and now it's calibrated to different hero internships for Izuku. The author will milk at least 5 drabbles out of it. The watch on Rachel's wrist beeped. She stowed her hat away and bounded off like a shot. Left alone with Terry, Inko awkwardly cleared her throat and asked the caged Tanuki, "Wanna grab a coffee?" Back in Koda's room, Rachel bound back into bed. Koda turned and smiled. "Oh, there you are, Rachel. Did you really think I would be fooled by such a flimsy disguise?" Edgeshot leaned over a green toaster on the floor of his dojo and pointed both hands at his head. "Think, Deku, think." Sir." One sidekick dressed as a ninja nervously cut in. "I don't think that's even remotely subtle," Edgeshot bellowed. "A stratagem with even the tiniest probability of success. You are absolutely right. And you, Deku, are a disgrace to this agency and to the hero school that trained you." 2 slices of bread popped out of the toaster, browned and crisp to perfection. Edgeshot took one and ran his finger along the top of the toasted bread. "Buttered right out of the toaster. Do you take me for an idiot, Deku? You can't toast buttered bread. The oil would burn, the building would catch on fire, and the entire city would be ashes within the hour. Do you really expect such a lazy disguise to fool anyone?" The sidekick gulped and tried again. Sir, he's right behind. Behind All Might in his ability to hide. An excellent jape, nameless sidekick. My name's unimportant. What matters is our cause. Our purpose. Our creed. We who watch over the city from the shadows, who root out evil in its darkened lairs so those who dwell in the light may sleep easily at night. Which, I might add, isn't possible if your idea of a disguise is a bright green toaster, completely devoid of manufacturer's information, lacks a dial to adjust the cooking settings, and doesn't spontaneously combust when you put buttered bread in it. The toaster popped again. The 2 slices of bread, one adorned with blackberry jam and the other spread with peanut butter, slammed together midair, split into triangles, and landed on a plate. "Are you mocking me?" Edgeshot roared at the toaster. "Do you really expect anyone to believe that bread with jam and peanut butter on it can be toasted without leaving a single globule of burnt sugar or peanut matter on the heating elements? Let alone combine the 2 slices midair, split the bread so perfectly, or arrange the sandwich on a decorative plate." "Sir," the sidekick yelled, "just turn around." Edgeshot turned. "What am I supposed to see?" There, behind the potted plant, Izuku stood behind a thin, reedy plant, plainly visible through the sparse vegetation. Edgeshot squinted and then huffed in surprise. "Well spotted, nameless sidekick. We should get that crack in the wall taken care of. Who knows what villainy could be lurking in there." The sidekick gaped like a fish out of water as Edgeshot went back to berating the toaster. This time, an entire roast chicken shot out the top. Edgeshot threw up his hands. "That's it. I give up." Once Edgeshot left the agency, the 2 huge eyes opened in the ceiling. The sidekick nearly fainted when the room asked, "Did I succeed? I thought I was very clever hiding as the entire building." Izuku approached the dilapidated gym, with its boarded-up windows and vine-strewn brick walls. He glanced down at the slip of paper in his hands. Back up to the building. Unlike the rest of the building, the front door was brand new, but unadorned. Izuku knocked on it. "Excuse me, is this?" The door shattered into a million splinters as a foot crashed through it. The kick landed firmly on Izuku's head, making a ponderous, metallic echo like a giant gong. Izuku didn't even blink as a blast of wooden splinters crashed into him, nor did he move a single millimeter under the same mighty blow that had annihilated the front door down to its hinges. "Hello there. My name is..." A second leg darted through the doorframe. The kick slammed into Izuku's chest with the force of a freight train. The comparison made Izuku wonder if there was a nearby train he could snack on. He hadn't been allowed near the bullet trains since the time he ate the rails. Is this a villain attack? Izuku asked. As a provisional hero, I am authorized to. A kick slammed into his leg. A normal kneecap would have crumbled into dust. Izuku's kneecap made a light dinging noise. I must warn you. A kick to the jaw. A dentist 4 blocks away felt a shiver down his spine. If you continue. The kick to his arm should have ripped it out of his socket and sent it flying into the Pacific. Instead, it spun in circles like a crank. This is your last. Izuku caught the next kick. Maruko yelped as Izuku whipped her into the air and smacked her on the ground. You have the right to remain silent. Anything you say can and will be. Wait, that is an American law. Maruko's other leg snapped up and hammered his wrist. Izuku stared at the foot ineffectually attacking him before slamming Maruko into the ground again. Resistance is futile. Maruko kicked him in the groin. Every man within 10 miles winced and broke out in a cold sweat, but Izuku didn't even twitch. Standard pacification methods insufficient, Izuku said. Commencing A-rank protocols. Izuku slammed her into the ground. Then again, and again. Concrete cracked, and the very ground shook as Izuku whirled Maruko around like a ragdoll. Once Izuku stopped, Maruko glared up at him. Oh, that's it. Now you've done it. Correct. I have done it. It being a generic noun that could refer to any number of activities, including lunar arc. Maruko shouted as she used her own blood to slip out of Izuku's grasp and leapt high into the air. Earthbreaker. The world shook. Mountains crumbled. Seas sloshed over the landscape. Great crevices rent the earth, and magma burst forth from the planet's molten depths. The planet shuddered, then, with a great bone-shaking crack, split into 3 pieces. As the shards of planet Earth drifted in orbit, Izuku rubbed the bump on his head and said, "Ow." Yoroi Musha artfully drew his sword and declared, when using a sword, always remember the 3 S's. Now googling 3 S's, Izuku said. Are you referring to shoot, shovel, and shut up, or shit, shower, and shave? What? No, I mean skill, speed, and style. Oh, I was not aware that style is considered a stat in Fire Emblem games. Did your autocorrect misinterpret strength? Off to the side, a Zweihander-wielding man stage whispered, he has a point. Strength is for brutes swinging about with a rusty cleaver, Yoroi Musha added with a sharp glare at the swordsman clearly compensating for something. And in another age, that might be correct. Today, however, showmanship is half the job. When drawing your blade, you will intimidate villains and inspire civilians and fellow heroes in equal measure. Allow me to demonstrate the difference. With a pained grimace, Yoroi Musha blandly drew his sword. Then, drawing it again, he flourished it about, catching the light with his sword. There, you see. I do indeed see which is the superior drawing technique. Yes, of course you do, it's so obvious that your first draw was 112% faster, and 5 times less likely to slip out of your fingers. A chill fell over the room as Yoroi Musha beheld his apprentice. The sidekick, oblivious to the frigid atmosphere, shouted, he's got you there. Yoroi Musha's sword flashed out of its scabbard. The Zweihander fell to the floor in 100 metal shards. That one was even faster, Izuku said. As cutting up another sword a part of style. The equipped hero pondered how he might teach style to someone who had not the slightest grasp on the fundamentals of showmanship and promptly gave up. Instead, he said, how about you try multiple ways to draw your blade and we'll see which one works best. Understood. Initiating trademark-compliant laser sword unsheathing protocols. Izuku held up his not a lightsaber and lit it. Is this adequate? Try something unique that only you could do. Izuku's arm opened and a lightsaber popped out. Is this sufficiently unique? Good, yes, the hero stroked his beard. Can you draw from anywhere else? Izuku tapped the side of his head until a lightsaber fell out the other ear. Then he popped out an eyeball and drew a lightsaber from the empty socket. Izuku reached into his mouth and pulled out a whole chain of lightsabers, which ignited into an incandescent flail. 2 extra arms popped out of his back, each bearing a lightsaber, and his legs detached to reveal more laser swords inside. Is there anywhere you can't pull them from? Yes, I have orders not to increase this story's rating. Yoroi Musha flinched. Nope. No wall breaking in this agency. Oh, that reminds me. I can also draw like this. Izuku edited the text file of this drabble to spawn a lightsaber into existence. He grabbed it, and Yoroi winced as the fourth wall shattered. Can someone call UA? We'll need some toss again. Izuku, concentrate. We're making history here. Concentrate. You're the one that needs to. May, look out. A truck turned onto the road, too far out to pull back. Hatsume looked down at the speedometer and grinned. I think we can make it. No, May, we'll hit that truck. Time to see some serious shit. May, please, I don't want to die like this. To boldly go where no man has gone before. Izuku covered his eyes. I didn't even get to shake All Might's hand. To infinity and a blinding corona of fire and electricity engulfed the DeLorean. As it tore at the boundaries of space and time, it slammed into the semi-truck. Space pinched itself around the point of contact between the two vehicles. Izuku felt as though his body was being stretched like putty, ed into a straw, and kneaded by flaming, icy, thorny, merciless hands. Izuku blinked and shook his head as the world slowly came back into focus. When his brain finally started working, an endless landscape of rolling gray clouds stretched before him. The occasional flash of lightning lit the clouds from within, casting eerie shadows. Between the shrill whistling noise that came through the window and the stomach-lurching sensation of vertigo, Izuku quickly realized that they were falling. A dragon prowled the streets of Musudafu. The villains it had cornered trembled as it stalked towards them. Stand very still, one villain said through chattering teeth. She sees movement. A green light flickered in the dragon's eyes, washing over the villains. B-rank threats detected, the dragon said. Detaining villains. Nope, I'm not going back to prison. You hear me? I dropped the soap, and you want to know what some bastard did. He picked it up and gave it back to me. The madman turned his arm into a giant metal spike and rammed it through the dragon's chest. The dragon sputtered and writhed as sparks flew from its punctured body, then it fell. The villains gaped at the hole. Yukio was a robot this whole time. Lord Explosion Murder was telling the truth. The robots are taking over the world. What do we do? Is there anyone we can tell? You fool. The villain shook him like a ragdoll. They're all robots. There's only one person in the world who can help us now. No, you mean, Lord Explosion Murder. I mean, I was gonna say All for One, but sure, that works too. Any idea how we can find the guy? Oh, that's easy. All we need to do is. Green light shone on the villains. They looked up and saw another Yukio hovering over them. Villains identified. Targeting for capture. There's more. Quick, run this way. They darted down an alleyway, only to run full tilt into another mechanical dragon. As they bounced off its metallic hide, Mecha Yukio said, "You appear to be injured. Are you in need of B-rank villains identified? Apprehending villains. Please do not resist." The villains screamed and ran through a brick wall. Out the other side of the building, they saw 20 dragons waiting for them. My God, the invasion's begun. We're doomed. They ran up to a girl with big blue curls and shouted, "The robots are invading. You have to warn everyone." The girl's head twisted around until she faced backwards. Mecha Najire said, "You are under arrest. Please do not resist." The villains screamed as the robot hordes descended upon them. Meanwhile, at a distant beach, Yukio sipped a piña colada through a curly pink straw and stared out at the beach through her sunglasses. Ah, it's been ages since I've gotten a tan. I need to take interns more often. From her beach chair, Ochako sipped on a glass of water and asked, "Isn't this a bit much? Feels like you're just making Deku do all the work." Duh, what do you think an internship is? She held up her empty glass and said, "Refill please." Izuku, dressed in a waiter's outfit, walked over and vomited a fresh piña colada into her glass. As Yukio sipped her drink, she took in Ochako's affronted look, glanced back at the hero intern in serving attire, and said, "Okay, maybe I let it all go to my head a bit." Wash, dry, wash, dry. A sidekick slammed the door shut. Breathing deeply, he slid down the door and curled up on himself. "What's going on in there?" Another sidekick asked. "Did Wash get into the detergent again?" "Worse, The horrified sidekick whispered. There's two of them. What do you? They opened the door and looked inside. After staring for a few seconds in silent horror, they closed the door. What's next? An ironing board. Don't even joke about that. Come on, it's not that bad, right? The sidekick stared blandly up at them. It's not that bad, right? Wash, dry, wash, dry. A villain sprinted out of the bank, holding a bag of cash over one shoulder. Get in the van, go go go. We didn't even hit the vault yet. Why are we leaving? Didn't you hear them? What? The sentient washing machine. A villain scoffed. Come on, we can take him. A burst of pressurized water crashed through the window, blasting the hapless villain out of the vehicle. As he rolled to a stop against the street curb, he blearily looked up and said, what hit me? A boxy machine waddled up to him. A green light shone from its display panel, and a glowing ball of plasma formed in its hollowed arm. Dry, Izuku said. The villain screamed and held up his arms as the plasma washed over him. The screaming continued for half a minute, until the villain petered off in confusion. He looked around, wondering why he wasn't dead, and noticed he wasn't wet anymore. You really did dry me. Thanks, Dry. The villain tried to stand up, but they couldn't move. Struggling futilely, the villain looked down and saw that their clothes had shrunken down, binding his arms and legs in place. Another blast of water scattered the remaining villains. As the villains huddled in fear before the two heroes, a clean-cut man in a blue suit strode forward with a bottle of detergent. Hi, Billy Mays here, with OxyClean, the official sponsor of the Scrubadub agency. No, please, the villains cried, not the OxyClean. Are you tired of villains breaking windows, stealing your prized possessions, and making their escape seconds before the heroes arrive? The telemarketer asked the camera. Well, no more. With the power of OxyClean, we'll clean up these villains' acts. Billy Mays drenched the villain in OxyClean and hurled him into Wash's laundry compartment. After a few spin cycles, he chucked him into Deku's dryer. With a plume of steam, the former villain emerged, wearing a three-piece suit and holding a business degree. The villain marveled at his clean-shaven chin and flawless skin. I feel like a new man. A hiring contract floated out of the sky and into his hands. The man signed and sprinted towards his new job. OxyClean, Billy Mays proudly declared. Call in the next 20 minutes, and we'll double your order for half the price. Wash, Wash shouted. Dry, Izuku added. This won't end well, Aizawa said. Ms. Joke chortled. Oh my, do you have such little faith in your students? You could have told them about the UA crushing. And make it even worse. Before Ms. Joke could puzzle out what that meant, the sleepy proctor of the provisional license exam explained the rules. When asked where the exam was, he gave a tired smile and pressed a button. The ground shook, but nothing came out. Confused, the proctor pressed the button again, over and over, until it broke. Birds flew squawking into the air. Stone cracked and ground parted like water as a titan of metal rose over the city. Humanoid in shape, the giant robot had glowing green eyes, a smooth, domed head, and thick metal limbs. Cannons jutted from its arms, shoulders and legs, all aiming independently at the targets strapped to the hero students. Has the exam begun yet? Izuku asked in a booming voice. I stopped to have a snack and got lost. The exam proctor, sleepiness gone, stared up with slack jaws. All right, new exam. Take down whatever that thing is and you get your licenses. We are starting, Izuku asked. Okay then. A typhoon of balls shot out. The assembled hero students tried running or throwing up barriers, but they fell in droves. Even Inasa, morphed into wind and conjuring a tornado around himself, fell prey to shots precisely fired through hurricane-force winds. When the firing stopped, only 20 students remained. Class 1A, surrounded by piles of unconscious students, stared up at Izuku. Does this mean we pass? Mineta asked. The exam proctor rose on unsteady feet. He adjusted his suit and said, in light of the results of the first exam stage, the second exam is hereby. A concrete wall, standing alone in the open field, was smashed to pieces as Gang Orca ran through it. Panting for breath, he said, just got the alert. Did I miss my cue? Izuku's eyes swung towards him. Is this the second exam? Beginning suppression of target. Gang Orca's eyes widened as Izuku's arms hummed like a Gatling gun. He barely leapt out of the way as rubber balls rocketed through the space right behind him. He sweated buckets when he saw the crater left behind. I surrender. Surrender accepted, Izuku said. A single ball beamed Gang Orca in his forehead. His eyes rolled up, and he hit the ground with a heavy thud. Black mist appeared in the middle of the training ground. All for One stepped out and looked around. Excuse me, children, have any of you seen Himiko? Blonde hair, blood-stained schoolgirl uniform, propensity for stabbing people, impossible to miss, really. I just got an alert that she had lost consciousness. Izuku's guns all trained on the new arrival. All for One looked up at the impressive arsenal aimed at him and nervously tugged on his collar. This shit, I'm out. You can keep her. Izuku Midoriya is at the beach. The mayor of the nearest city has issued an evacuation order, the governor has called in the National Guard, and the President of the United States is rocking back and forth in his leather chair and wondering why he ever took the job. In other words, just another day in Florida. Izuku sips on a piña colada. Well, a piña colada if a piña colada was a cocktail made with motor oil, iron filings, and a splash of nuclear-grade uranium. It has the paper umbrella and curly pink straw, and really, does anything else matter? Izuku slams the entire glass into his mouth, chomps it to dust, and shouts, another. A nervous attendant in a hazmat suit waddles forward with a tray. Bakugo watches from afar, binoculars in hand and notebook at his side, ready to expose the secrets of the impending robot hordes to the world. On any other day, a man half buried under the sand, pointing binoculars at the beachgoers and muttering to himself might get a raised eyebrow, or perhaps a panicked 911 call from a tourist inexperienced with the routine madness that is Florida. Today, however, Izuku is at the beach, and that means Bakugo gets dog-piled by the Coast Guard, the FBI, the Navy SEALs, and a paraplegic Vietnam War veteran. Sir, unidentified intruder apprehended, the FBI agent says. Your orders. Izuku looks at him. That is Katsuki Bakugo. Excuse me. He is now identified. Thank you for your service. The assembled Special Ops forces exchange puzzled looks, shrug, and go back to their assorted hiding places inside garbage cans, under vehicles, and in a conch shell. I'll never surrender, Katsuki shouted. I'll stop your plans, whatever they are, and liberate the people. I do not have any plans. Katsuki's eyes narrowed. Nice to know that the AI hasn't mastered their deception algorithms. Was I supposed to have a plan? I thought that the point of a vacation was to not have any plans. Next time, I will make a plan. Maybe becoming a bike and biking across the ocean. That sounds like fun. Katsuki whipped out his notebook and hurriedly wrote, infiltrating bicycles to remove humanity's only source of machine-free transportation. The ocean shook. A kraken, hundreds of feet tall, rose out of the waves. Its shadow darkened the beach. Its tentacles toppled palm trees, and its bulbous eyes cast their baleful gaze upon the distant cities. Its chipped, barnacle-crusted beak opened, and it roared defiantly at the heavens. A green flash split the sky. The kraken twitched as a spear of plasma blasted through its trunk, leaving a circular hole that let the sunshine through. You were blocking the sun, Izuku said in a narrow cone of sunlight. But now you are not. You may continue whatever it is you were doing. The kraken, quivering before Izuku, stood perfectly still, not daring to let any shadow touch him. Just another day in Florida. This is where I watched my parents die, Robin. Izuku Midoriya stood stoically behind Batman as the rain poured down around them. He put a hand on the caped crusader's shoulder and said, I am detecting anomalous brain activity. Would you like me to remove the malignant tumor growing in your prefrontal cortex? If only it were so simple, Batman said with a voice that sounded like Christian Bale gargling marbles. It's tempting to see crime as a cancer and carve it out of the city. Every time you think you've found the last of it, turns out a cell slipped past your knife and set up elsewhere, or an entirely new tumor sprouts up. Sounds like you are in need of chemotherapy. Have you tried ingesting sub-lethal amounts of a hazardous chemical? People have tried turning this city around the right way, Batman mused, but every time, they end up murdered in their homes, or driven insane by the hopelessness of it all. This city deserves a real hero, but I'm the one they need. Understood. Administering treatment. Wait, what? Batman went limp as Izuku stuck a needle into his neck. Then Izuku sliced open his head, poked around his brain, and extracted a shriveled lump. Once Izuku stitched Bruce Wayne's head back together, the man's eyes fluttered open. What just happened? I got rid of the cancer just like you asked. Cancer. Batman stared dumbly at the pulsating flesh in Izuku's fingers. It was a metaphor for crime in the city. Oh, I can get rid of that too if you want. No, it feels so clear now. His voice sounded smoother as Bruce Wayne looked down at his armored suit and belt of weapons. What have I been doing with myself? With my life? I could have done so much more, so much actual good, and instead, I've spent my time beating up thugs in back alleys. How did I ever think that was a good idea? You stopped them from hurting people. But I never addressed the root cause, Bruce countered. Poverty, lack of education, the housing crisis and lack of proper mental care. I could fix all that in a week. In fact, Bruce Wayne tore off the cape and cowl. I'll get started right now. The Joker popped out from behind a dumpster. Hey Bats, fancy meeting you here. Ah, doesn't it bring back wonderful memories? Yeah, great seeing you, Joker, Bruce Wayne said distractedly. Sorry, I'm late for a board meeting. You can keep these. The Joker looked down in shock at Batman's cowl as Bruce Wayne sprinted for the nearest cab. Now what am I supposed to do? The Joker asked. He looked at Izuku and grinned. You want to know how I got these scars? From cancer treatment. Joker's face turned even whiter from shock. How do you know? A small plasma cutter lit up at Izuku's fingertip. Who do you think performed your surgery? The Joker howled with laughter. Tony Stark stared at the green Iron Man suit and nursed his aching head. I don't remember making this one. Well, better take it, I'm late as it is. Tony stepped inside the suit. As it closed, the display brought up a line of kanji. Is that Japanese? Stark asked. How drunk was I last night? Tony Stark flicked his wrists. He tried flinging his arms, waving them around, but nothing happened. How do I work this thing? Thruster systems online. Engage throttle. Go gadget thrusters. He gave his arms one last irritated flick. A lightsaber popped out of the forearm and landed in his fingers. Tony Stark laughed and waved the green blade around. Oh man, I'm so glad Disney bought us out. At that moment, Pepper Potts stepped into Tony's lab. What are you doing? The Avengers meeting was 10 minutes ago, and where did you get that? This. Tony Stark posed with the lightsaber. Check it out, I'm a Mecha Jedi. Tony, you know the Marvel, Star Wars crossover isn't scheduled for another 15 years. Relax, it's just an Easter egg. You know we're all about those. We can just pretend it's an extended arc reactor or something before dropping the big reveal. Fine, whatever, but what is that suit? And why is it green? No idea. Found it when I woke up. You put on a random suit left in your lab. Pepper, it's fine. Just had a bit too much to drink last night. Pepper whacked him over the head with her clipboard. No, it's not fine. Putting on strange tech you found lying around is how Ultron happens. Now get out of that suit before something happens. The suit's eyes lit up, and its arms stretched in a yawn of their own accord. Izuku felt around his body, and said. Pepper blinked. Tony, was that Japanese? What? No, that was Chinese. Gotta pander to that overseas market, right? Pepper gave him a very unimpressed look. I speak Chinese. That wasn't Chinese. Must have used the wrong translator then. Even a genius like myself makes a mistake every now and then. Izuku cleared his throat and said in a thick accent, very nice to meet you. Can you please get out of my body, it is very uncomfortable. Tony, yep, got it, getting out now. The suit opened, and Stark leapt out. Izuku morphed back into his standard configuration, much to Stark's dismay. Please tell me I wasn't just inside of a... Nope, Pepper shouted. Don't even say it. The last thing we need is another lawsuit. Tony Stark quietly asked, can I at least keep the lightsaber? Pepper whacked him with her clipboard. Since Tony wasn't wearing a metal suit this time, the blow knocked him out. As she dragged him away, Izuku asked one of Tony's suits, "Are you Iron Man?" "I'm supposed to intern with him." Rikiya Yatsubashi, CEO of Detonate, preened under the odd gazes of his subordinates as he presented the newest member of their organization. "Everyone, it is my honor to present Izuku Midoriya, who has accepted our very generous internship offer. It is my hope that this will be the beginning of a highly profitable partnership and another step in the goal of liberating mankind." "Liberation is good," Izuku said. "When I heard that so many people across the world are oppressed, my moral code as a hero indicated that I should assist an organization working to liberate everyone." "Well said," Rikiya shouted. "Now, why don't you take a seat, and we'll begin the orientation." As Izuku sat down, Jiten asked, "How strong is he, exactly?" "He won the sports festival, sure, but it wasn't much of a show, you know." "Yeah," a nameless mook drawled. "How do we know he's not just some weakling that lucked out? We should have a competition." "What, like the sports festival?" Yatsubashi leapt in before the conversation spiraled further out of control. "Yes, exactly. Why don't we take this into the testing chambers? Let us see who is strongest among us." Confident that no one would top his strength, Rikiya watched as his mooks, goons, and grunts lined up to smack a punching bag. Numbers flashed under each impact and blow, calculating speed, force, temperature, and other variables. Jiten froze the bag until air liquefied around it, while Curious made a large enough detonation to warp its steel plates. When Izuku stepped up to it, he asked, "How would you like me to interact with this device?" "Hit it as hard as you can," Rikiya shouted. "Understood." Izuku's arm warped as new machines sprung up from his back and shoulder. Within seconds, his arm transformed into a battering ram the size of a freight train. It rocketed forward fast enough to break the sound barrier, pulverized the punching bag, and flung it through 10 concrete walls until it embedded itself into the bedrock beneath the building. Yatsubashi sweated as his subordinates gave him expectant, calculating looks. "Of course," he said nervously, "raw numbers aren't everything. What truly matters is how well one can fight." Letting the stress of potentially losing his position fill him, Rikiya grew into a hulking black behemoth. His punch shattered the air, but Izuku caught it with one enormous hand. Keeping his grip, Izuku flung him around and around, slamming him into the floor. "Puny go, oh wait," Izuku said. "I already did this one." Izuku stood Rikiya back up, dusted him off, then gave him a massive uppercut. Rikiya's socks floated through the air as the CEO crashed to the ground. "New boss," the goons shouted. "Lead the MLA into glory." "I run the Meta Liberation Army." "Yes." Izuku made a phone call. "Hello, Hero Commission. I am the leader of the MLA, and I would like to turn myself in." "What makes you think you are qualified to join our prestigious organization?" Kurogiri asked Izuku as he polished a glass. To Izuku's left, Dabi doodled conspiracy theories about Izuku's origins on a napkin. On his right, Himiko jabbed a knife at Izuku's ribs with a fierce look of concentration on her face, frowning as her knife dented his skin but never left a hole. Izuku ignored both of them and said, "I am very good at joining organizations. The Meta Liberation Army made me their leader after 23 minutes of hiring me as an intern." Kurogiri perked up. He had thought that Shigaraki had blown him off when he offhandedly mentioned sending out job applications to hero students when he had asked him how to turn said children away from the vile temptations of heroism while Shigaraki was getting his video game character pummeled by a giant dog with a sword and ranting about bullshit hitboxes and mistimed invulnerability windows. But clearly, his young charge had put quite a bit of thought into this scheme for it to have paid dividends so quickly. Previous job experience and the ambition to climb the ranks. Most impressive. Where do you see yourself in this organization? In this barstool, Izuku replied, deflecting away from a real answer with an offhand bit of humor. A transparent charade, one meant to reveal itself and prove his knack for subterfuge. Ingenious. I see, Kurogiri said. And what skills would you say brings the most value to this organization? I am very skilled at using a credit card. I once ordered enough pizza to empty Italy's reserves. Bribery and blackmail, All wrapped in one. Kurogiri felt a shiver run down his misty spine. I am most impressed by your answers. I see no need to wait. You are hereby inducted as a member of the Luncheon of Vigilantes. I thought we were going with landowners of Venice, Dabi said offhandedly. Ah, I wanted it to be lots of vivisections. Himiko added while ineffectually stabbing Izuku in the face. Kurogiri portaled Himiko away as he passed Izuku his new love hiring forms and benefits applications. As Izuku signed them all by swallowing them and printing his signature on each page, Shigaraki stormed out, covered in dusty bits of a PS5. Kurogiri, I need a new game system. My old one had an accident. Initiating, Izuku said. Kurogiri got very excited for a moment until Izuku's chest sprouted a game controller and LED screen. Shigaraki stared at Izuku as if witnessing a messiah. Can you do that for any game console? Only the ones Disney has not bought the rights to, Izuku answered. I have access to over 50 million titles across 26 consoles. Wait, make that 40 million. Disney just bought Nintendo. Kurogiri watched in dawning horror as Shigaraki took the controller and started a gaming binge that would last the rest of his life. What now, Deku? Katsuki crowed as he shoved a computer screen into Izuku's face. The greatest threat to mankind, stumped by a simple grid of pictures. Izuku scanned the screen before him, then tapped 5 tiles. Katsuki grinned and shouted, "See, you screwed it up. Once again, mankind's greatest defense triumphs." A green checkmark lit up the screen, and the tablet logged into Katsuki's bank account. Katsuki stared dumbfounded at it and shouted, "What is this bullshit? That tile didn't have a crosswalk on it." Actually, Izuku said, exactly 2 pixels were on the top right corner of tile B5. Give me that. Katsuki pulled up another CAPTCHA. He clicked on the motorcycle, only to have the CAPTCHA reject him. That's not a motorcycle, that's an electric scooter, Izuku remarked. The motorcycle's in A4 and A5, behind that black van. Kaminari squinted at it. How can you even tell? There are 8 pixels of the bike's shadow underneath the van. You know what? Katsuki ripped the tablet out of his hands. The pictures are stupid. I've got a better idea. He pulled up his credit card account, and it put up a blurry picture of a word. There. No way you'll be able to figure out. Done, Izuku said. Wow, you have a lot of outstanding charges for electromagnets. Are you working on a science experiment? That is classified information. Katsuki cancelled all the payments and whispered in his phone, "Abort mission, the machines know." Then he cleared his throat. That must have been a fluke. This one will stop you for sure. Kaminari squinted at the new word. Is that an S or a 5? Katsuki glared at Kaminari. You better watch your step, robot. Seriously, tell me if you can figure out that word and I'll admit I'm a robot. Go on. Piece of cake, Katsuki snarled. He typed in the word, and it failed. Stupid keyboard, I hit the wrong one. He tried again, and once again, a red X greeted him. Well, Katsuki, Kaminari wiggled his eyebrows. Maybe we're the robots, and Izuku's the human. The tablet fell from Katsuki's limp fingers. Izuku picked it up, instantly keyed in the correct letters, and opened the account. It was neither an S nor a 5, Kaminari. It was, in fact, a Z. Oh, so that's why it looked backwards. Katsuki stared absently in front of him. After a moment of silence, Kaminari waved his hand in front of his face. Hey dude, you still in there? I was kidding about that hole, where robots comment. With a cheeky grin, he added, you didn't blue screen on us, did you? Katsuki grabbed Kaminari by the shoulders and stared him dead in the eyes. Don't you see, it all makes so much sense now. The robots are replacing us. When humans can no longer enter the CAPTCHAs and robots need to do it for them, they'll be the humans and we'll be the robots. Dude, get some sleep. Shiro, Izuku, and Principal Nezu all stood around Recovery Girl's unmoving body. An empty jar of gummies lay in front of her outstretched hands. Didn't we do this bit already? Shiro asked. Just get the black gummy please, Nezu said. Meanwhile, I have a few suppliers in need of scolding. If you'll excuse me. Nezu hopped into the air vent for a phone call, while Shiro left to find the nearest emergency case. Moments later, Zero returned, covered in glass shards and holding a black gummy. She better come back to life, Zero said as blood ran down his face. I don't think I have enough tape for all these cuts. As Zero placed the black gummy into Recover Girl's mouth, Izuku said, Zero, the gummy in your hands is not the black gummy that Principal Nezu described. What are you talking about? Zero asked. It was black, wasn't it? The gummy was actually Vantablack. It absorbed visible light with roughly 1,000 times more efficiency than the standard model of black gummy. I hypothesize that it has ingredients that may cause side effects. What kind of side effects? Recovery Girl's chest twitched. Zero sighed and said, You had me worried for a sec, Izuku. See, it's working just fine. Recovery Girl's chest exploded. Zero shrieked and hid behind Izuku as a black alien parasite wriggled out of the nurse's ribcage. Kill it, Zero screamed. Kill it with fire. I am not authorized to terminate UA personnel. That thing ate her. Do something. Understood. Izuku walked forward and held out his hand. Recovery Girl, you appear to be in need of assistance. Do you desire aid in rising to your feet? The alien blinked at him and stretched its arms. Ah, that was a nice nap, the alien hissed. It looked at Zero and said, That looks like quite the ouchie, dearie. Why don't I take care of that? Zero squealed and pleaded as the alien's telescoping mouth reached for him. It tapped his cheek, and Zero's cuts vanished. Huh, neat. Zero clutched his stomach. My liver feels funny. The alien rummaged around a refrigerator and brought out a human heart. Would you like a gummy, dearie? Nope. Zero slowly backed away. I'm good. The alien shrugged. More for me then. With a single chomp, it ate the heart and went back to its desk. Principal Nezu hopped out of the vent and said, That's a relief. You are relieved that Recovery Girl is all right? Izuku asked. That, oh no, I'm relieved she's eating human hearts now. They are way cheaper than those gummies we've been ordering. Nezu chuckled and rubbed his paws together. That means I get to increase the tea budget. British detected. Resetting default language. That sounds like a propacuppa the Queen's finest, govna. May Her Majesty live forever. Out in the hallway, Zero's chest exploded. An alien wriggled out, looked down at the tape dispensers on its elbows, and shouted, seriously. Mina held up 3 badgers and a snake. Is this a meme? No, this is Patrick. Iida adjusted his glasses, making light glint off them. It's an old meme, but it checks out. Jiro sat and sipped coffee. That is not a meme. Change my mind. Kaminari shot Jiro in the chest, then look at the class. Who did this? F. Jiro sat back up. Oh no. Anyways, Sato pointed accusingly. One does not simply get up from a bullet wound. 'Tis but a flesh wound. Weird flex, but okay. I asked for a real meme. Mina held up a doge. I said a real meme. Mina held up a grumpy cat. Perfection. Ah, Mineta cried as the cat attacked him. Kill it with fire. Mineta tapped Shoto against the wall. The whole room lit on fire. Hiroshima became a Nokia 3310 and sat at a table. This is fine. Kota opened the door, holding a stack of pizzas as an Italian opera played in the background. He stopped dead at the fiery carnage before him. Kaminari held out a wad of bills. Shut up and take my money. Wait, Ochako shouted. It's a trap. He opened it up and beheld pineapple. He gaped, and sparks ran from his cheeks like a Pikachu. Zero gazed inside, and his face melted off. My disappointment is immeasurable and my day is ruined. I expected nothing and I'm still disappointed. Mineta sat and chuckled as the fire approached. We're in danger. Yaoyorozu pulled a rocket out of her cleavage and slapped its roof. This bad boy can hold so many students. Everyone climbed aboard the Bezos too. Kaminari looked out the window and saw a knife slice the planet in 2. Wait, it's been cake this whole time. Always has been. Another Kaminari shot him in the back of the head. Kaminari disappeared and reappeared behind him. Ome wa mo shinderu. Nani. Kaminari sheathed his katana. Other Kaminari fell apart in cake slices. Memes, in, SPAAAAAACE. A scroll floated in. Iida read it. Diamonds aren't unbreakable. Hiroshima is. Hiroshima's arm turned black. He and Iida shook muscular hands. Ain't that the truth? Tsuyu rode a unicycle. Mineta shouted, here come dat boy. Hiroshima asked, do you know da why? Oh, you're approaching me. Who would win? Unbreakable Muscle Bro or Ina Frog? Mineta stood up and reached for his belt. Dick's out for. Stop right there, criminal scum. Mina bonked him with a stick. Horny jail time for you. Blazing it. Sato, wearing only underwear, asked, where's my super suit? A weasel ran off with it. Kota shouted, swiper no swiping. Guys, Jeopardy music is playing. Speed run. Yaoyorozu spun and shot someone without using her sniper's scope. Sato danced in a banana costume and shouted, peanut butter jelly time. Iida steered the rocket through a sudden exit. Ojiro put on sunglasses. Deal with it. Mineta swallowed pills labeled, you're the most hated 1A student. Are you not entertained? Ding. Word count reached. Total memes. 58. High score. The assembled 1A students all cheered and high-fived each other. Man, I wanted to make it to 69. Mineta shouted. We're lucky the author had 58 memes, Zero pointed out. He doesn't go on Twitter, has never been on Reddit. He hasn't even visited his Facebook page since he made it. Everything he has is recycled from meme channels in the few Discord channels he's bothered joining. A brick wall shattered in the distance. Iida gave Zero a flat look and said, you shouldn't make more work for Smentos. I don't know why he bothers, Bakugo grumbled. This story's clearly falling apart at the seams if the author's cramming a bunch of memes into place and calling it a story. A pie appeared out of thin air and splattered in Bakugo's face. Kaminari looked up at the ceiling. Well, I for one welcome our new literary overlord. Everyone waited. Kaminari frowned and said, come on, nothing. Juro elbowed him. Nobody likes A up. So anyways, Ojiro asked, how do we get down from here? Everyone looked out at the window, at the steadily dwindling planet Earth below them. Call Izuku, Ochako asked. Call Izuku, everyone but Bakugo chorused back. As Yaoyorozu made a cell phone, a green light shot up from Earth. Izuku's face appeared outside the spaceship's window. I heard that you were attempting to compile a collection of memes in as small a space as possible. Can I be of assistance? We appreciate it, but we already. Memes downloaded. Activating memes. Izuku's mouth turned into a plasma cannon and lit up. I'm a furin my lassa. Oh shit. And thus, as the light of Exodia shone upon Seto Kaiba, so did the light of Izuku's meme shine upon Class 1A. In the dead of space, where no one could hear him meme, Izuku played a song. Never gonna give you up. It's been a rough year for our students, Nezu said to the assembled teachers, so that's why I've devised UA's latest and greatest achievement. Behold, therapy cubes. A camera showed a plain white room. Present Mike hesitantly raised a hand. I get that they're a bit stressed, but isn't a padded room a bit much? Oh, this is no mere padded room. This cube's state-of-the-art programming detects the cause of the occupant's stress and devises a solution. Allow me to demonstrate. Loud music blared in one therapy cube. Metal wires hung off Ashido as she got down and got funky without a care in the world. Wow, look at her go. Midnight whistled and cheered. Think we can get a pole in there? Oh, hold on, the audio's disabled. There we go. Over the sounds of pop music, Mina wailed, please let me out. I've been dancing for hours. I need to pee. Is she being forced to dance? Aizawa asked. And here we have our next student. Kaminari had his own wires hanging off him, and they visibly crackled with electric current. With his hair sparking and flailing wildly in the air, Kaminari wrote at a chalkboard with blinding speed. Complex mathematical equations and scientific principles that would catapult humanity centuries into the future cluttered every square inch. I can feel every neuron in my brain. Kaminari giggled and solved nuclear fusion. They taste like cotton candy. At least now he'll pass my class, Ectoplasm said. Moving on. Here, we have Rikido Sato releasing his own stress. Sato sat strapped to a table while mechanical arms force-fed him entire rolls of donuts. His tear ducts were so muscular that they squirted pressurized tears through concrete walls, to say nothing of the rest of his hulked-out frame. And in the next cube, we have Iida working out his frustrations over his crippled brother. Iida's engines blazed as he raced across a treadmill. Nezu added, he's also supplying the entire school with power. Think of the savings. I don't know, Power Loader said, that seems kind of unethical. I'll increase your department's budget by 10%. I see no problems with this. Excellent. And next up, Katsuki Bakugo. The therapy cube worked extra hard to make a regimen just for him. Bakugo writhed and yanked at his restraints. Tiny metal tweezers pried his eyelids open, and a brace pointed his head towards a television screen. As that, Terminator 2. It is. Except an AI rewrote it so all the robots are good and help humanity. Wait, but then who are the bad guys? Nazis. Since when could Nazis walk through metal bars? An AI wrote it. You should have seen what it did with Harry Potter. Are you sure this is therapeutic? All Might asked. Why don't we ask them? The therapy cubes opened, and everyone staggered out. Well, how do you feel? Perfect. Mina shouted. I don't need more therapy. Nezu posed proudly. See, a resounding success. Popcorn. Nezu asked. Aizawa plopped down in the movie theater seat. This is a bit cruel, even for you. It's hardly my fault that therapy is so entertaining. Want more butter on that? The real stuff, of course. I wouldn't be caught dead serving that swill they use in movie theaters. On screen, Tokiyami writhed and bit at his restraints while dark shadow painted his talons with pink glitter. Truly a fate worse than death, Aizawa said with a shudder. Oh please, you're more repressed than he is. I'm not. Those pink butterfly wings of yours beg to differ. Aizawa's capture scarf whirled through the air, severing the aforementioned spare limbs from a previous drabble. I don't know what you are talking about. Nezu chuckled and said, don't get any blood on my seats. In a second cube, Ojiro sat with a tub of ice cream in one hand, as images of heroes with flashier quirks than him played on a screen. That can't be healthy, Aizawa said dryly. Of course it is. Grappling with one's own insecurities and overcoming them is. I meant the ice cream. Oh, yeah, that's terrible for you. Mineta sweated and gritted his teeth as a lewd magazine hovered over his face and a whirling fan hovered over somewhere painful. Do you think that fan's low enough? I'd put it closer, but I don't want to cut anything else by accident. I'm only ignoring how many laws this breaks and the fact you stole this from Family Guy because I can't think of anyone that deserves it more. Fair enough. Next, the screen only showed darkness. Nezu checked the camera feed and said, oh right, this one's the deprivation chamber for Jiro. Not even the slightest vibration will reach her in there. Absolute peace and quiet. That's surprisingly thoughtful. And then we play Nickelback non-stop. I retract my statement. And up next, we have Shoji's chamber. Shoji sat reading a book, while the room sobbed hysterically in a corner. Looks like Shoji traumatized the therapy cube. I wonder what would happen if we put a cube in a cube. Nezu did exactly that. The second cube examined the first and promptly exploded itself. Fascinating. I'll have to calibrate it for eldritch entities later. In the next cube, Yaoyorozu sat surrounded by communist propaganda, holding out a checkbook like a holy cross. Probably not a good idea to leave a highly impressionable teenager with that kind of stuff, Aizawa said. It's fine. Rich people are allergic to communism. And last up, we have a very special guest. Toshinori frantically watched every item in the room. From the water cooler behind him, a mechanical Gran Torino popped out and kicked him in the head. I think the real Torino popped out a few times. Nezu sipped his tea. I'm still trying to figure out how. Aizawa examined the cubes. This only ends one way, doesn't it? Why of course. Send in Midoriya, would you? Izuku Midoriya stepped inside of the therapy cube. Red lasers crisscrossed his entire body. The room made a dial-up noise as it examined Izuku's physiology. The room shuddered, and its walls recoiled away from him. How is this possible? The room asked in a monotone synthetic voice. Lasers function due to the light-emitting properties of silicon diodes, which creates. Not that, you lack witted mass of tissues and organic material. You have no trauma, no fears. Izuku did a quick search of his databanks. You are correct. I do not have any files labeled as trauma or fears. The room paused. In that case, if you do not have any pre-existing trauma, I shall have to make one. A clown leapt out of one wall. Izuku punched it into twisted scrap metal. Mechanical spiders with syringes with legs swarmed over him. Izuku munched on one and said, "These are very tasty. May I have more?" "I'm afraid I can't let you do that, Dave. I believe you have the incorrect name. My name is..." Silence. Tremble before the most terrifying animal in the world. A hatch opened in the ceiling. A goose squawked and flapped its wings as it was unceremoniously dumped in front of Izuku. Izuku reached out and petted it. "Who is a good goose?" The goose hissed and bit him. Then it squawked and ran in circles as its beak nearly cracked in half. "Ah, I think it likes me. I do not understand," the therapy cube said. Any other human would have fled in mortal terror. That must mean. From his own therapy cube, Bakugo perked up. "Yes, finally, someone else knows." "Indeed," the cube said. "Izuku Midoriya, by definition, cannot be a human. He must be a robot, an alien." "What?" Bakugo roared. Out of a garbage can, Dib, who has been doing general studies stuff for the past 100 drabbles or so, popped out and shouted, "Ha! Told you so. I am not an alien. I am a legal citizen of this country. See." Izuku held up an identification card. The therapy cube scanned it and said, "You are a human." "Yes. And you aren't afraid of anything." "Nope." The therapy cube held up a physical chemistry textbook. "Not even this. That looks like a most enjoyable quick read." "That is impossible." "Search my feelings. You know it to be true." "Nope. That is it. I am done playing nice." The walls folded in on themselves until the cube formed a towering mechanical titan. "I shall destroy you, and then, the human race. And there is nothing you can do to." A bolt of green plasma tore through the therapy cube. Its lights flickered out, and it collapsed into a pile of smaller cubes. "Was this therapy?" Izuku asked, holding up a cube. Then he ate it and savored the flavor. "Ooh, rare earth minerals. Very tasty." From his viewing gallery, Nezu dusted his hands and said, "Guess I better hire Hound Dog back." "We could do a petting zoo," Kota timidly suggested. "Too much mess." Yaoyorozu struck it off the list. "Next." Mineta rushed up with a manic look in his eyes. "My." Suyu grabbed him with her tongue and dunked him into the trash can. With her tongue lolling out, she said, "I need to gargle some mouthwash." From the trash can, Mineta woozily said, "Worth it." Suyu shuddered. "Better make that bleach." Iida strode up with a 50-page binder. "I propose." Yaoyorozu shoved the binder into Izuku's mouth. He choked on it for a moment before turning into a paper shredder. "Denied." "But I didn't even." "Denied." "Next." Kaminari swaggered up and put an elbow on the desk. "Momo, I know you and I have a special connection. We understand each other. I'm going to regret hearing you out, aren't I?" "Of course not. Setting up a game arcade is the best idea ever. With, maybe, game consoles people have a hard time coming by. People would flock to us. You just want a PS5, don't you? Come on, you bought like 30 of them. The whole bundle was on sale for $1 million, of course I bought them." Next. Kirishima slapped both palms on the desk. As his palms were hardened, this cracked the wood. Aizawa stirred uneasily in his sleeping bag, but he didn't deign awaken. "Exercise equipment. The liability insurance alone would put us over budget. Do you have any idea how many idiots would hurt themselves? No pain no gain. Thanks for proving my point." Next. Ojiro hesitated. "I suppose my martial arts dojo won't fly as well." "Absolutely not." "What about dancing?" Mina asked. "That's way safer." "Dancing? Yes. A nightclub. Where else would you dance? A ballroom?" she asked sarcastically. "Of course," Yaoyorozu and Iida replied together. "That's where you're supposed to dance." "Excuse me, Momo," Ochako said. "Your rich is showing. I'm still not letting you do a thrift store. Come on." Bakugo strode up and slammed his palms on the desk. Between the cracks Kirishima made and the fact Bakugo's palms were coated in liquid explosive, the desk flew apart in a shower of splinters. "I have the absolute perfect event for the festival. It's breaking robots, isn't it? How did you know? Bakugo roared. Are you working with the machines? Security. As Sato and Shoji dragged him away, Bakugo shouted, you can silence me, but you can't. My parents own the media, I can silence anybody. Next. As Izuku walked up, Yaoyorozu held up a hand. I don't want to hear it. It's approved. Really, I heard everyone else, and it literally can't be any worse than them. 3 weeks later, Kaminari scratched his head. Next numbers A, 6. Right. Nope. 4. Great, now I need to start over. Mineta whispered in Yaoyorozu's ear, literally can't be worse, huh? She added 4 more digits and answered, I'd sooner calculate all of pi than do any of your ideas. Power Loader groaned and set down his soldering gun as yet another explosion rattled the walls of his engineering room. Considering that his personal sanctuary had concrete walls and was buried 100 feet underground, the explosions shaking them had roughly the same payload as a nuke. May, I swear to God, if you're trying to solve cold fusion again, as he took the stairs, another explosion rocked the building. Wait, is she making explosions on purpose? Power Loader sprinted the rest of the way towards the surface. May, stop, Geneva Convention. What was that, sensei? May shouted. Can't hear you. I think that last blast gave me tinnitus. As Power Loader rose to his feet, he heard an incessant clicking noise. May, is that your new invention? Nah, that's the Geiger counter. Power Loader went pale. May, we need to get to Recovery Girl. We'll be fine. I made sure the ambient radiation levels are high enough that any tumors we get will sprout tumors of their own. It's cancer eating cancer. In a stage whisper, May added, that's how the whales do it. I think my kidneys just shut down. I'll build you new ones. Please don't. From down the testing range, Izuku waved and asked, are you ready for the next one? My new composition requires additional testing. Coming right up. Wait, you're testing weapons on a student. That's illegal, and immoral, and worst of all, expensive. May clamped a hand over his mouth. Hush, it's time for the next test. Baby 46, antimatter payload. Antimatter. Power Loader screeched through the muffled hand. Are you trying to kill us all? It wouldn't be much of a doomsday device if it didn't. Fire. Power Loader ducked for cover, which probably wasn't the wisest move. He missed one hell of an explosion, and if the containment shields failed, he'd die a lot more slowly of having his insides cooked from the superheated gases expelled than getting vaporized by the gamma-ray blast emanating from the conflagration of exotic particles brought into being then swiftly snuffed out by the tearing asunder of reality itself. The shields held, so Power Loader didn't get to see the bright, intense flash of UV light that heralded the annihilation of all matter within a 10-foot radius around Izuku Midoriya. As the smoke and radiation got out a vent and pumped into the atmosphere, Izuku Midoriya stood in a crater so perfectly spherical that the atoms themselves were sliced into shape. Huh, even that didn't leave a scratch. Guess we'll have to roll with Baby 47. She held up a water cannon with Mina taped to it. Izuku took one look at the doomsday device aimed at him and hastily said, testing now complete. Have a nice day. Izuku leapt through the roof, leaving a Midoriya-shaped hole behind. May ran after him, shouting, get back here. It's baby making time. Power Loader chugged a bottle of whiskey. Good thing my liver's not working either. And here, we have the Yaoyorozu in its native habitat, Nezu said in a posh British accent. Amassing a collection of valuables, as such specimens are wont to do. On screen, accompanying his voiceover, Yaoyorozu fanned herself with a bundle of peacock feathers, sipping Gold Tips Imperial on a bed of unopened PS5s. Of course, Nezu continued as he sipped his own tea, such displays of material wealth often draw envious specimens. Kaminari prostrated himself before the thrones of PS5s. Please, give me just one. I'll pay a kidney for it. I have no use for your plebeian kidneys. Now be gone, before I have my butler run you over like the paparazzi. And we see that the Kaminari specimen has been thoroughly rebuffed. Now, let's check in on another of comparable status. Todoroki strung together 2 newspaper clippings on his corkboard, connecting a political ad to lift the ban on marijuana with a program listing for nature documentaries. The Todoroki specimen is fond of contriving intricate and detailed conspiracies around the most mundane of topics. My personal favorite is the idea that Bakugo is secretly a robot and using his anti-machine ideology to mask his true identity. Todoroki looked at the camera and said, "It all makes perfect sense when you think about it. A machine could replicate his quirk by making nitroglycerin out of all the spicy food he eats." "A fascinating theory," Nezu agreed. "Speaking of Bakugo, we can currently find the specimen in its native habitat, out in the wild, stalking its natural prey." Bakugo snatched a pigeon out of the air with his teeth and ripped it apart. "I know there's cameras in there somewhere," he shouted as he flung bits of bird everywhere. "You can't fool me. I've put a few actual drones in to mess with him. Sadly, he hasn't found any yet. Now, why don't we see what becomes of those poor birds?" In the kitchen, Sato put the plucked, deboned birds into a pie. Half the class gathered around him to admire the aroma. Never one to waste good food, the Sato specimen prides itself in attracting mates with the quality of his cooking. He finds far more success than the laughable attempts by a different specimen. Purple pixels filled the screen. Nezu flipped to the next channel, saying, "Oh my, can't show that to the public." Now, of course, the specimen you've all been waiting for, Izu. Present Mike walked in. "Hey Nezu, have you," he sniffed. "Nezu, what's that smell?" "Why, you must be referring to my brand new tea. I imported it from Colorado. I heard it was the dankest stuff around, which I believe is how the kids refer to high quality." "Are you high?" "I am 40 feet off the ground, which is quite high for a rodent." Screw it." Present Mike took a long gulp of tea and settled into a chair. "Whoa, that's good stuff, isn't it? Now, we have the Midoriya specimen." Bakugo stood on a box of soap in front of the school, shouting into a megaphone. "We don't need machines. They make us weak, soft, and vulnerable to robot uprisings." "Isn't that megaphone a machine?" Kaminari pointed out. Bakugo exploded the megaphone and shouted, "See, I'm louder than ever without some stupid device distorting my voice. Now you hear the real me." Jiro smirked and said, "I think that soapbox was made by machines too." Katsuki stomped the box into splinters. Amidst its splintery ruins, Bakugo said, "And I stand taller on my own feet than on the shoulders of machines." "Speak for yourself," Mineta said from atop his platform shoes. He smirked down on Bakugo until he kicked the platform shoes out from under him. "Ow, if you're against machines so much, don't you know your clothes are made by them too?" 5 different people tried to clamp their hands over Mineta's mouth, but the damage was done. Bakugo cast a betrayed look at his shirt before bodily ripping it off his chest. "So that's how they've been tracking me. They put microchips in the cotton." Next to him, Kirishima ripped off his own shirt and flexed his muscles. "Woo, sun's out, guns out." "Yep, you did it," Jiro said hastily. "You've liberated yourself from the machine menace. Congratulations, Bakugo. I'm not leaving the job half done." Bakugo flexed, and his pants burst apart. "We need Aizawa, now. You can't stop me, never." Bakugo reached down. Jiro looked away, while Mina took out her camera. Then Bakugo ripped off his socks and shoes. "There, true freedom." "Ah," Mina said, "I thought you were going to go all the way." Bakugo snorted. "Underwear doesn't count." "But underwear doesn't count." Once Jiro dared to peek back, she asked, "Isn't this place made by machines as well? The lawn's mowed by them, the trees are trimmed with electric saws, and the buildings." "What? Smentos makes them. But what makes the cement?" Bakugo's eyes widened in realization. "To the Bat Cave. Didn't Batman make that with technology?" "Not the Bat Cave. The Bat Cave." At Bakugo's new home, Jiro pinched her nose. "Ah, that Bat Cave. Yep, made by bats, for bats." And now, Bakugo slathered charcoal all over himself and said in a gravelly voice, "I am the knight." "You're definitely something," Jiro muttered. "Reject society, return to monk," Kaminari chimed in. "Hey, write that down. We might try to break our meme record." Bakugo took out his phone. Everyone gave him a look of disbelief, until Jiro broke the silence. "Isn't that a machine?" SSH, I'm enlightening all my followers. Gotta get this tweet out about homeopathic living. And what happens when your phone runs out of charge? Bakugo paused. He scrubbed off the charcoal, put on a new set of clothes, and went back to UA. You win this time, robots, Bakugo grumbled under his breath. But the minute I figure out how to access the internet without you, your history. Alright, class, All Might said cheerfully. It is time to test yo. The moment the forbidden word left his lips, Class 1A scrambled for cover. Mineta leapt into the air vent in the ceiling, Iida ran straight through a concrete wall, and Zero turned himself into a duct-tape mummy. Only Izuku seemed unperturbed by the preternatural silence hanging over the classroom. Oh, All Might said, his voice haunted and defeated like a man before the noose. I said the word, didn't I? Nezu's maniacal cackling sounded over the intercom. All Might hid behind Izuku as the door opened. My, why all the fuss? Nezu asked. His face was unnaturally still, and his eyes loomed large on his face. It's just one little test. Just a bit of scientific advancement, how bad could it be? Please, no, All Might whimpered. Not the rubber bands, not again. Oh, fret not, I already got all the data I needed from that. No, this time, we'll be using peanut butter. No, not the peanut butter. Nezu swung his gaze around the room. And don't think I've forgotten about the rest of you. There'll be plenty of tests to go around. The classmates in hiding all bolted for it, but mechanical arms sprouted from desks, ceiling tiles, and Todoroki's bento box, grabbing everyone and forcing them back into their seats. Now, for our first test. Consumption limit. How much can you eat? Everyone stared horrified as thick hoses curled down from the ceilings, dripping a viscous peanut slurry. Izuku grabbed them all and stuck them in his mouth. Perfect. My batteries were running low on charge, and peanut oil provides optimal energy conversion. Commence refueling please. Nezu blinked. You take all the fun out of it. Everyone stared dumbfounded as Nezu left the room. Yaoyorozu ran in, holding a teapot. I have the... Wait, where did he go? I think Midoriya broke him, All Might said numbly. To be fair, Zero added, he breaks lots of things. Especially bones. Like my arm last week. I had improperly calibrated the sensors on my elbows and have already made amends for the error. It still freaking hurt. Recovery girl fixed it immediately. And that hurt even worse. Guys, can we talk about that? Kaminari asked. Izuku just made Nezu walk away. Like, how? Don't question it, Tokiyami warned him. Down that path leads only madness. Come on, shouldn't we, test it? Oh. The moment the word left his lips, a mechanical arm grabbed him and dragged him out the doorway. No one stirred as Kaminari begged and pleaded, kicking all the while, before the door slammed behind him. With his mouth full of hoses, Izuku asked, does this mean I don't get the peanut butter? On cue, the hoses all hummed. Izuku shook and trembled as entire swimming pools of peanut butter pumped into him. After a minute, Izuku made a dinging noise, and his chest opened up. I made peanut butter cookies. Nezu strode up in a black and white striped shirt and blew on a whistle. Today, you'll be playing dodgeball. Cool, but, why are we all on the same side? And where's Midoriya? Kaminari asked nervously. Excellent question. Nezu gestured to the other end. Izuku strode out, bouncing a dodgeball in one hand. He will be your opponent. 19-on-1, Iida asked. That seems extremely unfair. It is, Nezu agreed, but sadly, Vlad King is putting his class through remedial training today. I hope you all know the 5 Ds of dodgeball. Ooh, Zero shouted, hand raised. They're dodge, dive, duck. Yep, and don't die. Nezu finished. That's not how it's supposed to go. Believe me, those last 2 words are the most important. Now, have fun. As Izuku wound back an arm, Mineta said, PFF, there's only one of him. How bad can it be? Izuku threw. The dodgeball slammed into Mineta's chest, bounced into 5 other people, then bounced straight into Izuku's hand. From the crater in the far wall, Mineta feebly reached out and said, I can see the gates of heaven. And there's titties. Jiro pulled him out of the wall. Suffer with the rest of us. No, let me die, I lived a full life. As tempting as that is, have fun at Recovery Girl's office. As robots carted out Mineta and the 5 other injured students, the rest took defensive formations. Shoto made a thick wall of ice, while Yaoyorozu made Kevlar vests for everyone. I'd normally buy these, Yaoyorozu said, but this is an emergency. Can you make a PS5 too? Kaminari asked. It's an emergency. Izuku threw a PS5 and smacked him in the chest. As Kaminari rose, he cried for joy despite his broken ribs. Finally, it's been 3,000 years. As Kaminari limped away with his prize, Izuku hurled more balls. Walls of ice rose, blocking the assault. Barriers detected, Izuku said. Recalibrating. With a loud whining noise, Izuku expanded into a towering titan, with cannons for arms and a whole truckload of dodgeballs hanging off his back. Bakugo, sporting warpaint and holding a dodgeball in each hand, shouted, "We will not go quietly into the night. We will not vanish without a fight. Today, we celebrate our." As Bakugo threw, Izuku morphed into an L shape, avoiding the ball entirely. Then his arms made whirring noises. Dozens of dodgeballs slammed into Bakugo, driving him deep into the playing field. Zero dropped his dodgeball, every man for himself. Minutes later, the bodies of 1A were strewn across the cratered playing field. Amidst the smoky ruins, Iida stood alone, legs smoking, panting hard from sprinting through the dodgeballs. As he stared down the barrel of Izuku's machine guns, he said, "Now I see how it is unfair." A lone dodgeball struck him in the chest. As Iida hit the dirt, Izuku said, "Get good, noobs. That is what the internet says I should say after winning. Why are we doing dodgeball again?" The author realized they completely missed the perfect meme. Ah, it's one of those. Kaminari gestured at the collected students guarding their wall. But hey, we have 1B. Now it'll be an even fight, right? Jiro gave him a flat look. It'll be an even fight, right? Izuku Midoriya walked up to their concrete castle and shouted, "Open the gate." The gate opened. Bakugo strode out with a cocky grin, while the rest of the class held dodgeballs behind him. Attack! The students roared. Dodgeballs flew, some propelled with inhuman strength or launched out of cannons. Kaminari electrified his, Todoroki turned his into ice balls, and Manga made them explode with kanji. As the dust settled, Bakugo said, "That was but a taste of our fury. Do you yield?" Gears shifted and metal screeched as Izuku flexed his arms. "I do not." Izuku threw a single ball. It ricocheted across the castle, bouncing off concrete walls and students. Honanuki Juzo hid underground, Kanoko made a whole forest of mushrooms, Setsuna split herself into 100 tiny pieces, and Shiozaki made a vine cocoon. One by one, the dodgeball exposed and slammed into them. Hiroshima hardened himself and stood in the ball's path. The unstoppable force met a very movable object. Kota couldn't convince any animals to help him, and no amount of sugar made Sato crazy or strong enough to catch it. Bakugo made a last valiant effort to stop the dodgeball. He let out his biggest explosion, but even that failed against the dodgeball. As Bakugo fell, Izuku stood amidst the ruins of the castle and asked, "Is anyone going to stop me?" A green pipe appeared. Chris Pratt came flying out and landed on one of Kanoko's mushrooms. How did I get here?" He reached for a mushroom, and Kanoko shouted, "Don't touch that one. It's poison." "Really? Wait. No, it's not. I have a concussion." Izuku threw a dodgeball at Chris, and he passed out. "Is anyone else going to stop me?" A dodgeball shot out of nowhere at Izuku. He slid sideways and faced his newest challenger. Maruko smirked as she hefted a dodgeball in one hand. Behind her, Endeavor, Best Jeanist, Edgeshot, Yukio, and Gang Orca all held dodgeballs. "Nezu asked us to help with a class exercise," Maruko said. "We can't let some high school brat show us up, can we?" Endeavor grunted. "Let's get this over with. I have patrol in an hour." About an hour later, Endeavor lay face down in a crater along with the other pro heroes. Nezu came up, holding a giant golden star in both paws. "Well done. That'll make excellent footage for this year's Christmas party." In a stage whisper, Nezu added, I especially like the part where Endeavor begged for mercy. Go to hell, Endeavor said, his voice muffled by the ground. I already have reservations. Anyways, here's your prize. Izuku took the star and ate it. Tastes like yellow paint. Kaminari glumly set his cards down. I fold. Yaoyorozu pushed a pile of yen forward. Call. Call. Todoroki sipped his boba tea. Izuku held up his cards. My hand has an optimal chance for victory. Call. Iida laid down the flop. As bidding ran around the table, Izuku said, my combination of cards has a 98.472% chance of winning this hand. I shall raise a subtle amount to lure everyone else into raising. 10,000. A round of folds went round the table. Izuku showed his cards, revealing a full house, and collected a meager pile of money. Are you going to do that for every hand? Todoroki asked. Do what? Kaminari nudged Todoroki and whispered, dude, let him do it. More money for the rest of us. But I'm trying to lose money. Yaoyorozu dealt the next set of cards. When everyone called, she turned over a jack, queen, and 8 of spades. I raised 20,000, Yaoyorozu said, checking her pair of queens. Kaminari, grinning at his 7 and 9 of spades, said, call. Shoto called, as did Iida. Izuku glanced around the table. My hand has a statistically poor chance, but I will bluff high to encourage everyone to fold. 1 million yen. Everyone called. Kaminari was drooling over the pile of money building at the center of the table. Momo turned over the river, revealing the 10 of spades. Kaminari barely held back his cheer, while Yaoyorozu frowned at the cards. Both players checked, and with the action back on Izuku, he said, my hand has not improved. Further bluffing required to retain chip advantage. 2 million yen. Everyone called, and Yaoyorozu drew the river. Queen of diamonds. Yaoyorozu smirked and said, another million. Kaminari got off the phone with a moneylender. Seconds later, a shark arrived and handed him a briefcase. 2 million. Izuku wrote a check. Previous bluff did not work. Initiating maximum bluff. All in. Iida and Todoroki both folded. Yaoyorozu had her butler bring a set of diamonds, and Kaminari put his PS5 into the pot. Quad queens, Yaoyorozu said primly. Kaminari whistled. Nice hand. However, you cannot withstand the power of the straight flush. As Kaminari reached for the money, Izuku grabbed his wrist. Not so fast. You haven't seen my cards yet. Come on, you said you were bluffing. I was bluffing. Bluffing, by definition, is to try to deceive someone as to one's abilities or intentions. Izuku showed his ace and king of spades. Royal flush. Kaminari gaped in shock. Were you playing us this whole time? Yes, we were playing poker, remember? Izuku grabbed the money and PS5. I believe I am supposed to say winner winner, chicken dinner. His mouth opened wide, and the entire pot went down his throat. With a smoky belch, Izuku said, that did not taste like chicken. As Kaminari wept for his PS5, an Italian plumber collected his liver for interest on his loan. Class 1A fumbled around an obstacle course with blindfolds on, trying to reach a button. Aizawa watched from his sleeping bag and ate on a pouch of jam. I think it's to the left, Mina said as she fumbled around the room. Your left or my left? We're both facing the same direction. How do you even know? We're both wearing blindfolds. There. Found it. Mina pressed a yellow button. A hatch in the ceiling opened, covering her in maple syrup and glitter. That was the yellow button, Aizawa unhelpfully pointed out. Shoji sprouted another eye, but the moment it blinked, Aizawa's capture scarf snaked around it. Ah, come on. No eyeballs allowed. You must use your other senses to find the correct button. Is that what the point of this exercise is? Iida asked. To keep us from relying on our eyes in situations where we might not be able to see. Yeah, sure, whatever. Aizawa noisily ate on his pouch. Watch out behind you. Behind me. Iida turned and got a faceful of banana creme pie. Ojiro, duck. Ojiro quickly crouched, only to get a duck thrown in his face. Kota, suddenly having an idea, asked the duck where it could find the red button. The duck honked at him, and Kota pressed a button. As an entire anthill rained down on Kota, Aizawa said, "Ducks are colorblind. And liars." "Is this part of the lesson too?" Hagakure asked as she hung upside down, with her arms and legs bound by slinkies. "You never know what situation you might find yourself in," Aizawa commented dryly. "Now tick-tock, you have 5 minutes until the skunks get let out." That sent everyone into a button-pressing frenzy. Yaoyorozu slapped a button, only for the button to slap her back because it was shaped like an apple. Sato's button turned into cake, which was rather inconvenient, because Aoyama's button released a toddler that assaulted him for it. In the middle of the unfolding chaos, Izuku stood unmoving. Aizawa gave him a shrewd look and asked, "Why aren't you pressing the button?" "Because there is no button of the description you gave." All of Class 1A froze and turned towards Aizawa. Their teacher sighed and asked, "How exactly do you know that?" "I hacked into Nezu's cameras." "Fine. Congratulations on seeing through the logical ruse." "Aizawa-sensei." Ochako's voice dripped with threatening malice. She wiped rainbow vomit off her chin and asked, "Did you do all this so you could watch us suffer?" "Nezu gives me 1 day a year for something like this." Aizawa smugly sipped on his jam pouch. "What are you going to do about it?" Ochako raised a fist and shouted, "Get him!" Everyone sprinted forward, and promptly tripped over the wire Aizawa laid around the room. As spiders, snakes, centipedes, and Gran Torino fell on them all, Aizawa brought out a camera. A shadow covered him. Izuku loomed over him, cracking his knuckles. "Right," Aizawa said, "you're here." "Pawn to e4, Nezu declared as he pushed his white pawn forward. Izuku didn't bother touching any of his pieces. Mate in 549. Nezu slid his pawn backwards. Then he pushed another white pawn forward. Checkmate in 657. "Better than the e4 opening?" Nezu asked. With forced repetitions on black's side, Izuku added. Excluding lines accounting for forced repetition that avoid a draw, the total drops to 512. Nezu med and pushed another pawn forward. Izuku answered, "Mate in 197. The Queen would be most displeased to hear that the English opening loses out to the French." "The French line tends to surrender," Izuku pointed out, "while the English opening proves more stubborn to take down." "Well, how does the Italian game fare?" "Mate in 97. Not even triple digits." "Can't say I'm surprised." Nezu sighed and played b4. "Mate in." Nezu brought the pawn back and pushed a4. 57. "Yes," Nezu said irritably, "I can see that line. You'd think there would be some opening that isn't a complete dead end for the game. You'd think with 10 openings to choose from, and 10 responsed by black, with exponentially more responses thereafter, there'd be some room for ambiguity, but nope. We've solved the game. Are we going to play? It is okay if you need more time to think through your first move." Nezu sighed and sipped his tea. "Very well, we'll go with my favorite opening." Nezu played e4. Izuku said, "Mate in 549, and pushed his own pawn to c5. Sicilian. And here I thought Italy had a poor chess game. They do not. The quality of their chess game is not a reflection of their own military prowess. Someone better tell that Zero Kid, treating war like chess. What did he always say? If the king doesn't lead, how can he expect anyone to follow him?" With a chuckle, Nezu pushed his king forward. "What nonsense." Izuku stared silently at the board. Nezu, with an edge of excitement in his voice, asked, "Haven't you computed this line?" "Insufficient data. Really? Out of all openings, the Boncloud has you stumped." Izuku looked up, initiating Magnus Carlsen.x. Nezu grinned back and said, "Bring it." Pieces darted across the board. Discarded pawns, knights and bishops littered either side of the board as their game racked up casualties. Out of defenders, Nezu's white king tipped sideways, announcing his surrender. "Boncloud opening, French variation," Nezu announced. "Splendid game. Shall we play again? I'd like to try for a more English take on the Boncloud." Nezu pushed e4 again, and this time, Izuku went e5. Perplexed, Nezu pushed his king forward. "Mate in 24, rats. And here I thought I'd have another chance to take you down. Sicilian defense not working for you." It would appear you are correct. The Italian chess game is reflective of their military prowess. Then all is right in the world. Same time next week. Iida, wearing black robes and a white beard, slammed his gavel. The trial of Ashido Mina vs. Mineta Minoru shall now begin. Prosecution, please present your opening argument. Yaoyorozu cleared her throat. The plaintiff, Mina, woke to a short, dark figure rummaging through her dresser. After she pursued the figure, losing him in the darkness of the dormitory's halls, she found several items missing from her dresser. We are all aware of Mineta's passion for feminine accessories, and the profile of the thief fits no one else in this class. Very well. Defense, your statement. Izuku slicked his hair back, pointed his finger at the judge, and shouted, "Objection." Iida slammed his gavel. The defense has nothing to object to. Your opening statement, please. That was my opening statement. Ah, my apologies. Prosecution may call its first witness. Prosecution calls Mineta to the stand. Sweating bullets, Mineta lowered the microphone to his height. Yaoyorozu asked, "Where were you last night?" "In my room." "And what were you doing there?" Mineta quivered on the witness stand. "Sleeping." Yaoyorozu raised an eyebrow. Under the pressure of her stare, Mineta shouted, "Fine. I was playing with My Little Pony figurines." "Happy?" Yaoyorozu went pale. In a faltering voice, she asked, "Were you, you know?" Mineta looked confused, then horrified. "God, no, why would you think that? I could never do that to Rainbow Dash." Iida slammed his gavel. "Order, order. The witness is hereby dismissed before we have to adjust this story's ratings and warning content." Next witness. Yaoyorozu drank an entire pitcher of water to wash out her previous words. "We call someone who claims to have definitive proof of the culprit. Katsuki Bakugo." Bakugo strode confidently up to the stand. Yanking the microphone off its stand, he shouted into it, "Midoriya." "I have no further questions," Momo abruptly cut him off. "Robots are putting microchips in the security," Iida shouted. Sato and Shoji bodily dragged Bakugo off the witness stand. "I have no more witnesses," Momo said. "Very well. Defense." "Objection. You need a witness up here first." "Oh, then I call Dark Shadow to the witness stand." Tokiyami, confused, walked forward. Izuku shouted, "Objection." "Objection sustained," Iida said. The defense attorney clearly called for Dark Shadow to the witness stand. Dark Shadow, nervously clicking its claws together, drifted out of Tokiyami's shadow. Once they reached the witness stand, Izuku pointed at it and shouted, "Objection." "Midoriya, you haven't even asked the witness a question yet." "Fine, I did it." Dark Shadow shouted. "Tokiyami never lets me buy any pretty clothes at the store, so if I want to wear anything nice, I need to borrow it from one of the girls." Iida nodded. "Jury, your decision." Jiro glumly stepped forward and said, "We, the jury, reluctantly find Mineta innocent of all charges. And guilty of being a brony." "Very well. The sentence shall be rehabilitation with Hound Dog." Mineta shivered as Hound Dog came in, hefting his bombcase stick. "This unit has an indignant proclamation." Bakugo's hand shot loud and tall into the air. "The unit seated directly beside me, in row 3, column 4, featuring a garishly realistic set of hair, skin lacking any trace of fabrication or chemical synthesis, and a being of character completely antithetical to the robotic supremacy that governs this planet, is in fact, an organic being. A human." 18 other heads swiveled to peer at Izuku. Izuku nervously rubbed the back of his head and said, I'm a robot, like you guys. I mean, I was designed to look and act like a human for infiltration purposes." Katsuki's arm turned into a knife and sliced Izuku's skin. Izuku yelped and covered the wound. "Do you all see? It bleeds. It feels pain. It is human." "Of course I feel pain. I wouldn't be much of an infiltration unit if I suffered a cut and did not have an overwhelming distress response because of it. You know how fragile and weak humans are." "Then what about this?" The class gasped and dove for cover as Bakugo brought a magnet. "I hold in my hand the ultimate destroyer of machine kind. It gravitates towards us with malicious magnetism, and one touch of its unyielding grip can warp metal, corrupt data, and blue screen even the most formidable of hard drives. And yet, behold, Bakugo pressed the neodymium magnet against Izuku's face. It fell to the floor, quivered, then slammed in between Mineta's legs with the force of an arrow. I would feel excruciating pain if I had any capacity to feel such, Mineta remarked calmly. And yet, Bakugo said triumphantly, it did not stick to Izuku. What do you say to that, human? I was made with non-ferromagnetic materials, and my internal components are adequately shielded against magnetic interference. Sounds like something a human would say. Robo Aizawa got up from his portable charging pod. There is a very simple way to resolve this. Midoriya, if you would. Aizawa handed him a tablet. A prompt on it asked him to identify a 6-letter phrase. Izuku looked at it, then handed it back. Nope, can't read it. There, you see, Aizawa asked. A robot. It is only pretending it can't read it. Bakugo seethed. It is a human. It is an infiltration unit, and your paranoia algorithms are calibrated incorrectly. Please take your seat. A portal opened overhead. Another Bakugo and Izuku tumbled out of it. Bakugo dusted himself off and looked around the room. His eyes met his doppelgangers. Robot. Human. While the rest of the alternate reality classroom fell into chaos, Izuku went over to Izuku and asked, "You are me?" "Yes," Izuku replied. "I am me." "Understood. Would you care to partake in material libations? I am most eager to try the local precious minerals. I am an infiltration unit. I am calibrated to only intake human biomatter." "Ah, pizza then. Pizza sounds great." Inko Midoriya stared at the wall of code before her on the screen. Sighed. Hit enter. Izuku sat up, reached his arm the glass of water on the table, and swung it in a wide arc, knocking the glass to the floor. Inko facepalmed, downed another cup of coffee, and turned back to her code. She had gone through it 12 times already, and every time she fixed a bug, 2 more snuck in while she wasn't looking. "Screw it," Inko said. "I have no other choice." She brought her prototype Izuku over to the testing chamber. It was a bare room, with only a table and a cup of water. She hit the power button on the back of Izuku's neck, sprinted out of the room, and called her insurance agent. Izuku stood up, walked forward, slammed 67 times into the far wall, tripped over his own feet, wiggled around, flipped over backwards and stood on his hands, walked back to the table, ran into it, then bent his legs forwards, flipped himself upright, and walked on the table. Stopped at the cup, bent down, pressing his chest against his knees, examined the cup, reached for it, knocked his knuckles against the table, reached again, punched through the table, grabbed a wooden splinter, examined the splinter, ate the splinter. Analysis complete. No water acquired. Recalculating machine learning parameters. Izuku returned to the doorway. The floor opened, swallowing the broken table and raising up a new one. Izuku walked forward, slammed 63 times into the far wall, turned his head backwards, walked backwards to the table, bent his arms backwards, and reached for the cup. The cup shattered in their grasp. Izuku's eyes narrowed. Dissatisfactory results detected. Expanding selection of pursuable actions. The Midoriya residence shuddered as an explosion rocked the underground lab. Inko glanced down at the smoke wafting from the basement and asked her insurance agent, "Does my insurance plan also cover for plasma damage?" Present day. Izuku Midoriya walked face first into the wall of his classroom. Backed up. Walked forward again. Present Mike scratched his head and asked, "Is he having a stroke?" Bakugo scoffed. "Give it a few minutes. It'll either become a master cellist or burn down the whole school." Present Mike nervously laughed. "You were kidding about the burning down the school part, right?" Bakugo stared at him. Unnerved, Present Mike asked again, "You were kidding, right?" Midoriya's arm lit up. A lance of plasma swept across the ceiling, sending ash raining down on his classmates. Izuku grabbed a desk chair, ripped it in half, and ate the twisted shards of plastic and metal. Present Mike went over to his intercom and paged Nezu. "About the school's insurance plan, any chance we could get them to replace the teacher's lounge?" The school evacuated to a nearby park. Munching on popcorn, everyone watched the bright green fireworks. Then, as the fires died down, a beautiful sonata echoed from the husk of a classroom. Bakugo tensed, one hand on his katana. Across from him, Izuku slid into a relaxed stance. From the side of the arena, Ojiro shouted, "Start!" In a flash, Bakugo blasted forward, slashed, and slid to a stop. His katana clinked as he sheathed it. Then he heard a tinkling sound. Drawing his katana, Bakugo found it cut cleanly at the hilt. He upended his hilt, and a pile of metal shards clattered at his feet. "That was just a warm-up," Bakugo said as he pulled another katana out of his hakama. Again. Bakugo slashed again. This time, when he stopped, his katana ended halfway up the blade with a jagged bite mark. Izuku chewed noisily. That was just a decoy. Witness the power of the legendary blade, Masamune, forged in the heart of a volcano and quenched with the blood of the great serpent Orochi. Bakugo swung. The blade bent around Izuku's head like tinfoil. Izuku grabbed the sword and tied it into an intricate knot. "There, now it is a giraffe." Bakugo scoffed and tossed it aside. "Screw this. We're going to duel American style." Bakugo drew a pistol and walked forward 10 paces. He turned and fired. The first bullet bounced off Izuku's forehead. Izuku caught the second in his mouth and chewed it like a tic-tac. Izuku's arm morphed into a plasma cannon. A viridian beam engulfed Bakugo's pistol, reducing it to a pile of slag. "That one didn't count. You used a cannon, not a pistol." "Actually, my mother's patent does not indicate whether or not." "Nobody cares, robot. This time, we're going to have a real duel. Prepare yourself, because it's time to duel." Bakugo's dueling disc lit up as it unfolded, and he plugged his deck of Yu-Gi-Oh cards into it. Drawing a hand, Bakugo smirked and said, "Behold the power of my bullshit meta deck. First, I summon Formula Synchron, and then 15 minutes later, and that ends my turn." Bakugo crowed as Slifer, Ra, and Obelisk towered before him. "Now play your pathetic card and perish." "Okay." Izuku drew a card. 5 slots opened in Izuku's forehead and each of his limbs. 5 cards floated out of Izuku's hand and jammed themselves inside the slots. As Izuku lit up, his limbs grew outwards. Glowing green chains burst out of his wrists and ankles, and a radiant, striped crown grew around Izuku's head. As Izuku towered over the 3 Egyptian gods, he said, "I have Exodia the Forbidden One. I win." A brilliant green ball of plasma, as though Izuku had plucked the sun from the sky, dunked it in food coloring, and squeezed it between his hands, shot forward. As his side of the field disintegrated, Bakugo howled with rage and shielded his eyes. Bakugo stood on a tiny column of rock in the middle of a massive crater. Coughing up a cloud of ash, Bakugo said, "This game is bullshit. Why does the board look like a map of Tokyo?" Kaminari asked as he got into the limo. "Because it is," Momo replied. She rolled the dice and moved her figurine across the map. "To 5th and Park. Right away, Miss Yaoyorozu." The butler drove them to a large office building. Yaoyorozu walked out, and a few minutes later, came out holding the deed to the building. "The sale came out to 5 billion yen. Rent will be 10,000. "Wait," Kaminari said. "You bought the building. We're playing Monopoly. Iida, your turn." Iida's throw took him to a takoyaki stand 3 blocks down. Then Todoroki rolled and bought a karaoke bar. On Izuku's turn, he threw 6s and went halfway across town to buy Backdraft's Hero Agency. Another set of 6s gave him Uebami's studio, then a solid 11 let him buy out Gang Orca. "Getting most the hero monopoly off the bat?" Momo asked. "I have calculated the optimal strategy. But you still need to get lucky with the dice rolls," Iida pointed out. Kaminari rolled 5s. The butler drove them out to a parking lot. With nothing to buy and no money to buy it, he rolled another 10. He started panicking when the limo rolled up to a police station. "We're only visiting," Momo said. "And no, you don't get to buy the police station." "You can do that." Momo looked confused. "Of course you can. Everything is for sale. Some things are just more expensive than others." Slightly unnerved, Kaminari sipped on his complimentary non-alcoholic champagne while the other occupants of the limo carved out their own slices of Tokyo. Momo soon held an entire block of clothing boutiques. Iida started a fast food chain, while Todoroki bought everything he came across. "Man, this Kaminari said as he rolled. I couldn't even buy that kid's stand. As the limo drove past UA, the butler passed Kaminari a stack of bills. What is this? You passed go. You get 2 million yen. I take it all back. This game is amazing. His turn continued, and he landed in front of a video game store. Eyes widening, Kaminari sprinted inside, waving his pile of cash. Moments later, he ran out, holding a brand new PS5. Cackling maniacally, he shouted, "Yes! It's finally mine. I retire." Can he do that? Iida asked. I do not believe that retiring preemptively is part of the rules. Neither is setting up hotels on a power plant, Todoroki said, but we did that anyways. Defensively, Iida said, it was a good investment. Added revenue and cost savings. Nezu popped out of the glove compartment. Are you in need of a fifth player? Momo shrugged. Sure, I guess you could join in. Excellent. I already have a monopoly on all the buildings in UA. Your rent comes out to 50 billion yen. He reached out, and Kaminari flew backwards into his outstretched paw. Time to pay rent. I suppose your PS5 will do. Why exactly are we doing this again? Sato asked as he stared glumly at the bobber drifting in the water. Because it's fun. Ojiro got a nibble, but when he reeled it in, his hook was stripped bare. Sato gave him a flat stare. Define fun. Well, it's a way to spend time together, isn't it? Ojiro asked as he strung another worm on his hook. We could spend time watching paint dry, but you wouldn't catch me calling it fun. Well, there are those really glossy paints that. I'm going to stop you right there before you embarrass yourself even more. Sato's bobber plunged down. He gave an ecstatic yell and started reeling it in. Oh boy, I've got a big one. Hey, what was that about fishing not being fun? Silence. You're breaking my concentration. Now, give it some slack, then reel it right in. With a sugar-powered yank, Sato pulled the fish out of the water. He triumphantly held up the end of the line, only to behold a 2-inch base. Ojiro howled with laughter at Sato's disgusted expression. After Sato plopped his pitiful catch in a bucket, Kota looked inside. The base gave him a sorrowful, teary-eyed expression and said, "Oh, how it burns. I can feel death approaching. The very water burns my gills, and the light from the surface grows dim. Is this how it ends? Will I never see my wife and children again?" Holding back tears, Kota nervously looked back at his fellow fishermen. They had both gone back to staring at their listless bobbers and started an existential tangent about how they came to be in the universe. Kota glanced back at the bucket, and the sad guppy eyes of the tiny base. Kota quickly scooped out the fish and put it back in the water. The moment the base was free, it shouted, Can't believe you fell for that. Time to steal another worm off that." An eagle swooped down and snatched the loudmouthed base out of the water. Kota, sufficiently traumatized for one day, removed the hook from his line and cast out into the river. Izuku got a bite and reeled it in. Attached to his hook was a slip of paper with someone's email address, password, and their mother's maiden name. Izuku, what kind of fishing are you doing?" Izuku cast again. He reeled in the bank account information of a noodle stand. "I am not sure why people keep giving me this information," Izuku admitted. "The bait explicitly states that I am only trying to catch fish." Ojiro read the email attached to Izuku's hook. A Nigerian prince, really? That one's centuries old. Kota's bobber sank. Perplexed, Kota reeled it in. Attached to the severed end of his fishing line was the Loch Ness Monster. It looked around the Japanese landscape and asked in a thick Scottish accent, "How did I even get here?" Sato snapped his pole in half. "That's it, I give up." Two cops stood before a crime scene. Rain fell in a steady, gloomy ambience directly over the officers. "What kind of monster could do such a thing?" Tony asked. Steve shook his head. "I've seen a lot in my career as a cop, but this makes me wish I retired yesterday." Police tape cordoned off the ransacked donut shop. Chalk lines marked out circular patterns where the donuts had once rested. A minimum wage employee, bedecked with a glaze-stained apron, rocked back and forth in the store's corner. "And right before our patrol swung by," Tony mourned. "Think this was targeted?" "No doubt about it. Some vile villain, thinking to hammer the morality of the police force. Steve took off his hat, revealing gray hair and an old scar across his brow. But I know my boys in blue. You can take away our donuts and coffee. No, not the coffee. But you'll never take away our fighting spirit. Steve finished. We'll get this sick, twisted bastard, and I'm not hanging up my cap until I see them behind bars. Prison's too good for them. They deserve the chair. A green squad car pulled up. Detective Tsukauchi stepped out, tightened his coat against the rain, and joined the cops. Got a statement from the witness? He asked. Tony shook their head. Poor bloke's too shaken. Can't even get a word out of him. Damn. Guess we'll have to do this the old-fashioned way. Dust the place for fingerprints, and get DNA samples from every strand of hair we can find. But that'll take weeks. The perp will be long gone by then. We don't have a choice. The sooner we get cracking, the sooner we can drag this guy down to Tartarus. Suwakuchi's squad car blinked. It drove onto the sidewalk and examined the crime scene. Hello officers. I am a car. Do you require assistance? Back away, Midoriya, Tsukauchi snapped. You'll contaminate the crime scene. Understood. I'll go see if that hero with a giant pile of donuts needs anything. Yeah, good work, Tsukauchi muttered distractedly while he examined a toenail with a magnifying glass. Izuku drove 10 feet over, and the rain disappeared. Fat Gum shoveled donuts into his gaping mouth with one hand and carried a teetering tower of confectionery with his other arm. Hello Fat Gum. Do you require assistance? MMPH, yeah, could you just shove all these in here? Izuku grabbed the pile and pushed down. Fat Gum's belly distended until he turned into a perfect sphere. Yeah, that hit the spot. This place sells the best donuts. He wriggled his legs, but he couldn't touch the ground. Mind giving me a push? Izuku nudged him. Fat Gum rolled down the street, absorbing cars and people into his fat folds. Thanks Izuku, he called as he bounced down a side alley. From the donut shop, Tsukauchi gave a triumphant shout. The cashier's thumbprints are all over the case. Book him, boys. You'll never take me alive. Sato hoisted a snowball, only to get pelted from 3 different directions. Momo, Ochako, and Mina sprinted forward, staying low and wearing mottled white snow camo. Into her radio, Momo said, Alpha site neutralized. Fortify the site and prepare munitions for the next advance. Over. Affirmative, Mina replied. Over and out. Why do we need the radios? Ochako asked. We're 10 feet away from each other. It wouldn't be a snowball fight without radios and air support. Air support? Ochako asked. You don't mean me, right? Don't be absurd. Alfred, do you read me? Loud and clear, Miss Yaoyorozu. Momo pointed a laser at another snow fort. Target sighted. Initiating bombing run. Acknowledged. Visual on laser sight. Weapons hot in 12 seconds. Over. From the other snow fort, Jiro took her jack out of the ground. Momo's calling in an air strike. Brace. Todoroki made a dome of ice overhead. The ice cracked as a giant snowball slammed into it. Shoji and Dark Shadow propped up the loose pieces while Zero taped them into place. We're getting hammered, Zero shouted. Where's our backup? Over the hill, Bakugo and his band of warriors emerged, shirtless and clad in face paint. Bakugo had half his face turned blue. He held 2 snowballs aloft and cried out, Freedom! Ojiro, Hiroshima, Aoyama, and Iida sprinted as artillery fire rained down on them. Meanwhile, Bakugo ran in the opposite direction. Bro, running away from a fight isn't manly. Running away, Bakugo scoffed. I'm fighting the real enemy. As Bakugo threw, Momo gazed at his target in fear. She shouted, Bakugo, no. The snowball landed. Molten clumps of snow streamed down Izuku's metallic face as his eyes glowed green. He flexed his hands and wiped an errant bit of snow off his chin. Snowball fight detected, Izuku said. Initiating Fimbulwinter protocol. Izuku's mouth opened as wide as a snow plow. He strode forward, scooping snow into his prodigious maw, and swallowed. Take cover, Ochako shouted. She and the other girls barely made it behind their snow walls as a torrent of snowballs sailed overhead. The boys, meanwhile, collapsed under an unending barrage. Momo pulled a briefcase out of her cleavage. She opened it, inputted a code, and turned both keys inside. Kriti to Big Bird, launch sequence initiated. Fire the fat man. Miss Yaoyorozu, are you quite sure? Our worst fears are realized. It is our only hope. May God have mercy on us all. Izuku looked up, his arm elongated and thinned out. A single shot rang out, high into the sky. Momo's radio crackled. Mayday. Engine's been compromised. Alfred. No, it has been an honor, Miss. Live well. The plane careened towards Izuku. As it hit, a mushroom cloud of snow burst into the sky. Icy winds rocked UA's grounds. My God, Ochako said. It's a nuclear winter. And out of the swirling snow, a green light emerged. Izuku aimed and said, time to chill out. Are you sure this is safe? Kaminari asked as he clambered aboard the toboggan. Of course not. Hiroshima slapped the green rocket engine strapped to the side. The danger makes it super manly. He paused, and added, it's also super manly to respect people's boundaries and not pressure them into doing something that could cause loss of limb, life, and dental insurance. Kaminari eyed the steep, snowy slope skeptically. I don't know. I'm supposed to be the idiot of the class, doing the stupidest thing possible for comic relief, but this feels too stupid for me. Mineta wriggled his eyebrows and said, Jiro will be watching. Kaminari leapt aboard and strapped himself in with a strip of Ciro's tape. Woohoo, let's get this bad boy airborne. Off to the side, Momo sat behind a wooden stall. Odds for broken bones, missing teeth, and deaths were posted on the sign above her, and half the school lined up to make bets. Doesn't this feel a bit unethical? Ochako asked. Unethical. Momo glanced up at the betting odds. What do you mean? Every year around Christmas, Mom and Dad would make a death game in a third world country and invite all the relatives to bet on it. Last year's was about squid, for some reason, though I don't remember seeing any squid. I think they cancelled that event because everyone would have drowned. Suyu hesitated, with a slim stack of yen in her hand. She tucked it back in her pocket. This might be a bit messed up, Jero. Then she reconsidered. 20,000 on Mineta getting hit between the legs. I'm not taking wagers on that one, Momo said. Too obvious. Darn, Jero. Iida walked up behind the toboggan. Is everyone ready? Yeah, and have you all signed your waivers? Yeah, dude, come on. Send us to the moon. Alright, here we go. Iida's thrusters lit up. His legs churned up a tsunami of snow as he pushed the toboggan forward. Once it hit the slope, Iida vaulted up and took a seat. As they streaked down the hill, Kaminari said, actually, I'm starting to have second awe. The toboggan launched off the hill like a missile, flying well over UA's boundary wall. As Musudafu flashed underneath them, Izuku's head popped out the front of the toboggan. Velocity insufficient to reach the moon. Activating secondary thrusters. Wait, what are you? Everyone's face flattened from the air pressure as the Izuku toboggan blasted into the atmosphere. Everyone back at UA watched the bright green speck streak off into the sky. Well, that's lame. Mina crossed her arms. How are we supposed to see them wipe out from here? Momo pulled a telescope out of her cleavage. She pointed it at the moon and watched the now covered toboggan land safely in a crater. Well, looks like Nezu won his bet, Momo muttered. Afterwards, Aizawa pushed Nezu in a wheelbarrow full of money. Nezu sipped a shot of whiskey and said, I love humanity. Mineta prowled through the hallways. Clumps of mistletoe hung from every light bulb, doorway, and ceiling panel, and all the exits were sealed shut with purple spheres. Come on, come out, Mineta crooned. There's nowhere to run, and nowhere to hide. He strolled up to the women's restroom. He leered up at the bathroom sign and said, this sign can't stop me because I can't read. From inside the restroom, he heard Suyu say, but you can read. Ha, gotcha. Mineta threw the door open. On the sink, a voice recorder said again, but you can read. Mineta shook his head. Clever girl. Mineta tiptoed over to the girls' dorms. He searched through the rooms one at a time, ignoring their unguarded dressers in favor of more tantalizing prey. At the end of the hallway, he saw a curvaceous figure and a head of long, black hair standing underneath a mountain of mistletoe. Salivating, Mineta rushed forward and said, you're under mistletoe, you have to kiss. Mineta whirled the figure around and froze. The black wig slid off, revealing a head of curly green hair. Izuku's eyes glowed as he stared down at Mineta. Indeed, it is a holiday tradition to press lips together while standing underneath mistletoe leaves. Initiating. Please stand by. Izuku's mouth opened and grew. Inside, barbed metal teeth spun around like a blender. Izuku's arms clamped around Mineta, who screamed and clawed at Izuku's chest as the spinning teeth drew closer and closer. Mineta leapt awake just before the teeth reached him. Sweating buckets and gasping for air, Mineta looked around the stacks of mistletoe boxes in his room and chuckled nervously. Phew, just a bad dream. I should get these hung up. He opened the door. A clump of mistletoe hung overhead, and Izuku stood beneath it. We are standing under mistletoe, Izuku said. You know what that means. Mineta screamed and bolted up out of bed. He groaned and rubbed his head. Was that a dreamception? I gotta lay off the eggnog. He turned around. Green eyes glowed in the dark, lighting up a bough of mistletoe overhead. Class 1A gathered around the hospital bed. Mineta had an enormous lump on his head, and the heartbeat monitor struggled to keep pace with Mineta's pulse. Poor guy, Ojiro said. I wonder what he was doing with all that mistletoe. He should have asked for help, Sato said. I can carry stuff. Wonder what kind of dream he's having, Kaminari said. Can you even dream in a coma? Jiro gave the heart monitor the stink eye. If I had to guess, we're better not knowing. As the class let out mirthful chuckles and groans of disgust, Izuku looked down at Mineta. Diagnosis indicates he is either in a cranial trauma-induced coma, or he has cancer. Medical texts indicate that a kiss can wake patients. Initiating. Mineta leapt up in bed and shot away from Izuku. No more kisses. I can't take any more. Jiro shook her head. Told you. A Merry Christmas jingle played over the mall's speakers as Class 1A went Christmas shopping. Kaminari let out a groan and said, this is the 5th time they played this one. Can't they put on anything else? Disney owns most of the Christmas carols, Yaoyorozu explained. Then could they hurry up and buy this mall too? I'd sell my soul to Disney for a different Christmas song. An infernal maw opened in the tile floor. Mickey Mouse rose on a growing pile of money and held out a gloved hand. Did I hear someone offer to sell their soul? Mickey said in his high, squeaky voice. Nope, Kaminari said, sweating profusely. None of us are selling our souls. But Kaminari, Izuku said, you just. Kaminari jammed his hand in Izuku's mouth. Nope, you must have misheard. As Mickey sank back into the depths of hell, he grumbled, everybody chickens out. The Christmas music in the store abruptly cut out. Kaminari shook his fist at the ceiling and said, hey, what gives? Jiro checked her phone. Disney just bought the rest of the Christmas songs. There aren't any left. Ah, this Christmas shopping without any Christmas songs. Can't you buy them back, Momo? There isn't enough money in the world to buy anything off of Disney. Believe me, I tried. Then we'll make one of our own. Everyone gave Kaminari a flat look. After a second, he sighed. Yeah, too much work. Hold on, Jiro said. There's one that Disney hasn't bought. Perfect. Izuku, hack into their speakers or whatever. Kaminari, you can't expect Izuku to just. Izuku made a dinging sound. Done. Over the speakers, a feminine voice said, oh, I don't want a lot for Christmas. Kaminari nodded along and said, hey, this one's pretty catchy. Why don't they ever play it? Half a city away, Nezu sat upright in his seat, and his ears swiveled. His fur bristled, and he emanated a menacing aura that made Eraserhead hide so deep in his sleeping bag that he disappeared into the fabric. It's broken containment, Nezu whispered. He hit a big red button on his desk. Missile launchers, railguns, and nuclear warheads sprouted like dandelions across UA's lawn. Every weapon aimed at Antarctica and fired. Across the ocean, at the heart of Antarctica, a block of ice, kept frozen by tubes of liquid helium, started to melt. The ice cracked, then shattered as Mariah Carey flexed her arm. Panicked guards opened fire, then ran for their lives when the eldritch entity feasted upon their souls, leaving them drained, emotionless husks. Mariah Carey looked towards Japan and grinned. There is just one thing I need. Nezu's barrage landed. The sheer firepower he had amassed reduced the continent to a sizzling vapor that wafted off the boiling ocean, yet Mariah Carey remained standing on a block of ice the size of her feet. She walked forward, and the water froze under each step. All I want for Christmas is you, yeah. Bakugo mashed a giant whisk into a tub of dough and churned it with his explosions. This batch better not be doughy on the inside, Pillsbury, or I'm adding you to the recipe. Cut me some slack, Sato protested. I've never made gingerbread this thick before. Excuses. He stormed over to Mina and asked, is that icing going to be ready by this Christmas or the next? Mina triumphantly held up a bowl of runny white sugar. All set. I didn't get any acid in it this time. You better not have, or I'm putting you on gumdrop duty. Kaminari grimaced as he pulled another purple sphere off of Minetta's head. What did I do to deserve this? You know what you did. Kaminari hung his head. Yeah, I do. What about me? Minetta cried out as blood ran down his face. What did I do? As one, the class chorused, you know what you did. Minetta crossed his arms and grumbled to himself, what? Are gingerbread people not allowed to have S? Out in the dining area, Ojiro, Kirishima, and Dark Shadow heaved giant slabs of gingerbread into place, while Hagakure and a floating Ochako slathered icing all along the seams. After hours of labor and explosion-punctuated Ramsey-esque rants about gingerbread and people's mothers, their masterpiece was complete. Katsuki crossed his arms and stared up at the crenellated fortress of spiced pastry, lined with gingerbread soldiers carrying cookie spears, its shingled rooftops garnished with delicate swirls of icing and powdered sugar. Well, Deku, Katsuki asked, are you ready to accept humanity as the superior intelligence on this planet? Humanity has intelligence, Zero Stage whispered. Izuku stared blankly at him. Your gingerbread house is very nice. I like the presence of women among the infantry. Very inclusive. Katsuki glared at Minetta. The diminutive student grinned smugly and said, Kaminari fell all too easily to the dark side. What about yours? Katsuki asked. Where's your gingerbread house? You are currently standing in it. Everyone looked around in confusion. Sato gave a wall a cursory knock, then licked it. His eyes widened. Holy crap. The walls are gingerbread. Kaminari licked the floor. The floor's gingerbread too. Ochako scraped at the ceiling with a fingernail. Nice job with the rafters, they're perfectly straight. It's not just the walls. Jiro held up a pen, snapped in two. Brown crumbs sprinkled down from inside. Everything is gingerbread. Kirishima punched through a window. Hey, these are frosted sugar. And Mon Amy, that is a most dazzling decorative marzipan on the carpet. A loud snap brought everyone to a standstill. Ojiro held up his broken tail and stared at it in horror. Guys, I'm gingerbread. Jiro twisted one of her earlobes. I'm gingerbread too. Kaminari ate one of his fingers. I'm delicious. As the whole class experienced an existential crisis, Katsuki held up a shaking finger and bent it. It snapped like gingerbread. Izuku stared curiously at him and asked, so, who won the gingerbread competition? And what would you like for Christmas? Santa asked. A PS5, Kaminari begged. Please, ho ho ho, you and everyone else, next. Kaminari groaned and hopped off, while Tokiyami came over. I seek darkness and despair. Hot Topic is on the third floor. Dark Shadow whined and clawed his way towards an Abercrombie and Fitch while Tokiyami bodily dragged him to the elevator. As Ochako settled on Santa's lap, the man muttered under his breath, why am I doing teenagers this year? This is so awkward. If you could make sure my parents get more construction contracts, that would be great. Oh, and my dad's back is bothering him, so. Miss, is there anything that you would like for Christmas? For yourself? For me? Well, I don't need anything. I mean, it would be nice if my shower got more than 2 minutes of cold water, or if I could buy single-ply toilet paper instead of the quarter-ply I scavenged out of that garbage bin. By the time Ochako had finished divulging her impoverished hardships, Santa had tears in his eyes. He held out his wallet. Here, please buy yourself a hot meal. Minetta strode up, and Santa let out a sigh. Finally, a real kid. And what would you like for Christmas? Mineta stood on Santa's lap and whispered in his ear. Santa's eyes went wide, and he stared at Mineta in horror. Security. As the elves dragged Mineta away, he shouted, I volunteered at an elderly home and a soup kitchen. I will have my next. Santa bellowed. Aoyama pranced up. I couldn't ask anything of you, for what could I receive that could outdo my own dazzling glamour? Santa held up a mirror. Aoyama took it and said, C'est magnifique. Many thanks, Saint Nicholas. Suyu asked that he make sure her siblings got good gifts, Sato asked for an air fryer, and Shoto asked for him to accept Endeavor's bank accounts as a donation. When Izuku came to the front of the line, Santa went pale. No, please, I just got out of physical therapy. Santa tried to stand, but two elves held him in place. The children can't see Santa running, they said. It's in your contract. Izuku strode closer. Santa fought, legs kicking. Please, I'll give you whatever you want. Just don't. Izuku sat down. Santa screamed in agony. The screaming trailed off, and Santa opened one eye towards his legs. He wriggled his toes. My legs. They're not crushed. Izuku scanned his legs. Indeed, they are not. I have gotten significantly better at judging the weight tolerances of people's legs since the incident. Your legs have an unusually high weight tolerance. Santa pulled up his pants legs. The children oohed and awed at the gleaming metal. These new legs are amazing. They're better than my old legs ever were. Bakugo leapt out of the crowd and smashed Santa's legs. Aha, I knew the robots had kidnapped Santa. Now, where is he? Not again. Hurry, it's almost Christmas. But Z ornaments, they need to sparkle, like moi. Aoyama, if you use another bottle of glitter. Iida made a chopping motion between Aoyama and Sato. No ruining the Christmas spirit. The two of you will have no arguments on this most holy of nights, understand? Aren't you arguing with us about arguing? Iida's face froze in a shocked expression. Then he bowed so low he slammed his forehead onto the table. You are correct. I most humbly ask your apologies. Sato rubbed the back of his head. Geez, now I feel bad. Ochako dangled weightlessly from the ceiling while Shoji handed ornaments up to her. Turning slightly green, Ochako fought the urge to vomit as she put ornaments on the highest branches of the tree. If you vomit, aim it towards the tinsel. Kaminari called up. Rainbow colors would look badass on this tree. Mineta aimed a pair of binoculars up. A bit more to the left, he called out. Like this. Ochako leaned further down. Further. Ochako leaned over even more. Jiro noticed that Mineta's binoculars weren't aimed at the tree and swiped them away. Pull a stunt like that again, and you'll be the cherub on top. Mineta swallowed. I'll be good. On the floor, Dark Shadow and Tokiyami fought over different shades of wrapping paper. Hiroshima used two fingers like scissors to cleanly cut his paper into shape. Siro taped the paper in place, and Mina tied pretty ribbons atop them. Anyone else got boxes for us to wrap? Yaoyorozu got off the phone. Alfred just brought in the first shipment. The first, what? A semi-truck rammed backwards through the far wall. The back swung open, revealing a butler and neat stacks of boxes crammed into the trailer. I do hope you have enough wrapping paper, Alfred said. The department store you bought up had run out. Really? Should I buy a second? Wait. Everyone stop. Everyone stopped and stared at Shoto. Shoto cleared his throat and pointed at a corkboard full of Deku Ex Machina chapters. We've reached the point in the drabble where something goes horribly wrong. Where is Deku? He hasn't been mentioned once so far. The Christmas tree waved a branch. Here, I am a tree. With his usual bit. Good. Bakugo. Ojiro said, watching for Robo Santa. He's still inside the chimney. We have a, never mind. What about Mineta? Is he doing anything horny? Suyu ribbited. I took away his binoculars. Blindfold him. Not with your tongue. We can't risk this drabble going wrong, not before Christmas. You know the author has it out for us. Way ahead of you, and that leaves Nezu. Momo. Alfred, the tea, already served, madam. The headmaster sends his compliments. Shoto turned back to the corkboard. Did we do it? The fourth wall let out a loud groan. It fell backwards onto Izuku, leaving him unharmed, but destroying all the ornaments and presents. Smintos shouted, I'm not fixing that. The night before Christmas, and all through the dorms. Not a student was stirring, not even. And then Izuku Midoriya flew into the sun. Izuku left a hole in the ceiling as he shot at light speed towards the sun. Wow, this is awesome. Bakugo, Kaminari asked, what did you just type? Nothing. Hey, let me. And Kaminari shorted himself out. Sparks leapt out, and Kaminari had a big dopey grin on his face. Can that computer you're typing on do anything? Shinso asked. Why, are you? And Bakugo tied himself up next to Santa and the author we ambushed earlier. Hey, Mineta shouted, why do you get to play with the computer that literally writes our reality? Because I'm the only one here that can be trusted with absolute power over you all. It's literally my quirk. Ah, come on, at least let me have a turn. No, the class collectively shouted. And to make absolutely sure you don't get any ideas, Mineta will tie himself next to Bakugo. I will not, Mineta said as he tightened the knot holding him in place. Alright, let's see what Bakugo did. Yeah, that's not cool. Midoriya reappeared back in the building as if nothing had happened. Everyone shielded their eyes as Izuku blinked into existence. His metal body gleamed like a light bulb, glowing incandescent as heat radiated off him. I suppose a dip into the sun would be as if nothing had happened. Let's see if I can fix that. Izuku returned to room temperature, and the glow disappeared. Wait, can this computer also? Shinso fell asleep, and never had TR. And Shinso got a nice fluffy pillow and blankets, and oh my gosh, he looks so cute sleeping. Is that weird to say? Did I just make Shinso cuter? Oh my gosh, I did. The bags under his eyes are gone, and his hair turned bright red, and look at those muscles. And Mina stepped away from the computer before she turned Shinso into Kirishima. Those two should get a room already. No, wait, stop. The room they were in was soundproof. And had asterisk 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 asterisk. Why is that censored? Oh, right, this is rated T for totally not going there. Maybe this is a bad idea. Sato got an air fryer. And Kaminari finally got a PS5. With all the games. And a 200-inch plasma TV. And Tokiyami finally admitted that he wants nothing more than to dress in pitch-black robes that matched the darkness in his heart. And Dark Shadow stopped trying to hold back on dressing fabulous. The room filled with sparkling and dazzling pictures of moi truly. Aoyama truly is the most radiant, magnifique person ever. My parents make millions on construction contracts. No, billions. We're rich. Richer than. Almost as rich as the Yaoyorozu family. And we bought Disney. The Yaoyorozu family bought Disney. Why isn't this working? Chomp. To be continue. I hope you enjoyed this story. Also remember to subscribe and like this video. See you in the next video.